sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We have quite a show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's theme is Turn Down for What? And we'll explain what that means as we get into tonight's stories. First and foremost, I do want to give shout outs to people in the chat, ladies and gents. What's going on? Blockbuster says hi. Greetings, Lorez says, sup, Sabby, Eric, Corey, and RB and fam. Thanks for having Jeffrey Sachs. He helped me see through the BS. Is that the BS of 2020? I voted no because nobody should sympathize or associate with a genocidal ideology. Yeah, please answer that poll question when you get a chance, guys. We'll reveal the results at the end of the show. What's up, New York Varsity says Huckabee lacked the iHeart. What's going on? Thon says, hi, family. Oh, snap. Fudge those DSA members that voted for Zionists. Get them the fudge out. Shout out for Socrates says, before 2023, it would have been yes. Greetings, Hannah says, Professor Sachs. Shout out to Randy says, good evening, Sabby fam. Shout out to Megay says, Zionism is antithetical to socialist ideology, 100%. What's going on? All one same said, make it a great day, everyone, in memory of Dwayne Vogel, my Captain America. Yes, I know. I think we all miss Dwayne. I still can't believe it, to be honest with you. It's crazy. Shout out to Salma says, Ayatollah means sign of God in Hebrew, Bible, and Arabic. Greetings, Crystal says, hello, everyone. So glad to see Professor Sachs. Shout out to Kermit, sends the eyeballs. What's going on with the eyes? Shout out to Fine Weather says, hello in here, in her. Shout out to Casey sends a solidarity and fire. Greeting Danrick says, hey, everybody. Shout out to Fire says, welcome in Sabby Sab's tribe. So stoked to be here with you all. Greetings, Tim. I know I'll do it this weekend. It's on my calendar. Free Palestine. And don't forget your YouTube plaque, Sabby. Yes, I'll put it up. I will put it up. Shout out to Otis says, hi. Betty, what's up? Says the Kennedys are Zionists also. Greetings, Ashura said, Nick covered this yesterday. Zionists infiltrate everywhere. Yes, they do. Greetings, Jimmy says, hey, everyone. Shout out to Sarah says, afternoon. And greetings, Happy says, absolutely not. Who wants genocidal sociopaths in their organizations? Yeah. I feel you. I feel all of you guys. So, we have quite a bit to get into tonight. First and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support and holding down the fort around me. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. They are ultimate. There are Sabinators, later gators. There are Sabsters in the house doing the damn thing. Don't forget about the Sabbies. They are not shy at all. They are the meat of the sandwich, I think. That's the most popular category. And of course, we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there throughout the show. So if people are new, you're wondering who those names are, that's who they are. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Quite a bit to get into tonight, ladies and gents. The theme is Turned Down for What? And yes, I do like the song Turned Down for What. It's a good workout song. But we're talking about a different turn down, different turn down for this particular stream. Let's see what we are discussing, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. What is up, ladies and gents, tonight? And for the first time coming onto the show is Professor Jeffrey Sachs. So this was my first time talking to him. Great discussion there. We're also going to discuss, this is a big story, the DSA backlash about the anti-Zionism vote. And you'll notice in that pink square there, there's AOC, and the woman next to her is Gloria Steinem, and it's all connected. And we're going to do a deep dive into that and what I believe happened to DSA. That's going to be our deep dive. We haven't done one in a while, so I'm looking forward to that. We're also going to discuss, yes, the Donald Trump DC takeover. There is new footage that I'm going to share with you. They already have the National Guard members there on the ground. We're going to go ahead and break all of that down and what I really think this is about, because I really don't think this is about crime. So I'm going to get into what I think Donald Trump is trying to do and why you should be concerned. We're also going to discuss, this story is kind of flying under the radar, the Black church decline. There is something happening there, and there are multiple reasons. I don't think it's just one, and we'll get into that tonight, what is happening to the Black church. And last but not least, if you haven't seen this freaking psycho, Mike Huckabee, we're going to get into his cringe remarks about the Palestinian people and the response that comes from Medi Hasan. I mean, this is yikes. It's bad. That remark there from Mike Huckabee. But what else do you expect from a Zionist, right? What else do you expect from them? So again, the theme is Turned Down for What? We're going to get started with our interview with Professor Jeffrey Sachs. So I talked to him early this morning, and I wasn't going to live stream early in the morning. I know a lot of people are not available. Also, I know Hard Lens is also live in the morning. You know, I don't want to step on Kit's time. I don't want to step on Jamal's time as well. So to be, make sure I'm fair to them as well. But we do have it. I want to go ahead and get into that interview. And can you smash the like button for me? Thank you very much. And if you're new and you like what you see, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's go ahead and get into this discussion here with Professor Jeffrey Sachs. I thought it was a good conversation. Let's go ahead and bring it in. And let me get myself out of the way. My special guest is economist Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Sachs, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So I want to start with Russia and Ukraine. I feel like it's kind of slid under the radar a little bit because I've been discussing Gaza so much, but there are recent developments that have come about. Donald Trump is now saying that he will try to get back territory for Ukraine. This is really strange considering there was that conversation between Trump and Zelensky in the White House not too long after Trump took office. And Donald Trump told him that he had no cards to play here. And he had also mentioned that Crimea belongs to Russia. Now he's saying the exact opposite. Now we see that Donald Trump is trying to get some territory for Ukraine. How likely is it that this is going to happen? I just don't see Vladimir Putin caving to this type of pressure.
I think you're completely right. Donald Trump says a lot of things. They're not very consistent. They change by the hour. And Russia is winning on the battlefield. And it's stated its positions quite clearly about the territorial issues, the neutrality of Ukraine, the end of NATO enlargement. While not everything that the Russians have said will come to pass in an agreement, they do constitute the core of what will be agreed. Trump, fancies himself as a deal maker, so he puts pressure on, he makes threats, he does bluffs, he changes his mind, he says how much he likes the person, then how he is disappointed by the person, then threatens the person. This is standard behavior. We see it every day on almost every issue. But the fact of the matter is, if you look beneath the surface, you can see the contours of what the U.S. should agree with Russia. First, that the U.S. should stop arming Ukraine over a useless and destructive war, that Ukraine should be neutral, that this NATO business, this enlargement of NATO, never should have happened, never should have been threatened, never should have been a provocation. And yes, that there will be some territorial exchange as a result of this, which also has a long and detailed history. For example, the two provinces of eastern Ukraine, called the Donbass, were subject to a treaty in 2015 called the Minsk II Agreement, where Russia and those provinces said, look, they will stay within Ukraine, but Ukraine should give them political rights because these are Russian-speaking regions. And the United States and Ukraine said, no, we're not going to do that, even though they signed the agreement. So from the Russian side, they just see a lot of tricks, a lot of U.S. duplicity, actually. We don't hear too much about that in our media. But the U.S. once upon a time in 1990 told the Russians NATO won't even enlarge at all eastward. Then they cheated on that. The United States signed with the Soviet Union the anti-ballistic missile treaty. Then the United States left that. Then the United States pushed NATO to enlarge to Ukraine over strident Russian objections. Then the United States helped to overthrow a government in Ukraine in 2014. Russia didn't like that very much. Then the United States said, oh, you don't have to honor this Minsk II agreement. Russia didn't much like that. Then Russia and Ukraine came close to signing a peace agreement in April 2022, and the United States under Biden said, no, don't sign it. All right. So this is a little tiresome, the Russians aren't just feeling in a great mood. They didn't fight this war out of their desire. They fought it after provocation came their way. And that's not being an apologist for Russia. That's just trying to explain why the war came and how it needs to end.
I totally hear you. I think it's important that people understand the history. I think more people are waking up to it than at the beginning of this war. I noticed I'm seeing less Ukrainian flags that I saw at the beginning of the war, and more Americans are frustrated, and they're saying that they don't want these wars, and they definitely don't want these forever wars, and they don't want U.S. dollars going towards these wars abroad.
There you go.
Either. That's a big part of it, right?
There you go.
That connection. But I wondered this as well. How likely is it, because Donald Trump made this promise, I mean, how likely is it that he ends this war with Russia and Ukraine? And should Vladimir Putin trust the United States at this point?
Well, if there's a very public agreement on principles and it's signed by Russia and the United States, it can be trusted. What's happened up until now is that things aren't put on paper or statements are made. But if things are made very clear, then I think it's possible. And especially things should be made clear. They should also be supported by the rest of the UN Security Council. Everyone should understand this war needs to end. You get the whole kind of world community through the UN saying, yeah, okay, these terms, this is the basis of it. If someone cheats, we're going to know which one did it. Not he said, but rather put it clearly. Of course, that takes some skill. You need diplomats. You can't just do it on Truth Social. You can't just say, I'm threatening you. You must do this in 24 hours. I give you 10 days. I punish you if you don't do this. I'm disappointed. You're a bad person. This is not how to run a government. Sorry. We need diplomats. We need negotiated documents. We need the public understanding. Trump, a normal president, frankly, would give a speech to the American people explaining the context, the history. This is how you actually solve problems. It takes a little bit more care than a Truth Social post. I don't know if we're going to get more than that, but that's what it needs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that what was really interesting to me, I saw a speech that you gave not too long ago at the European Parliament.
Yes.
And very gutsy speech. And I just remember the looks on some of their faces. They were just like, what is he saying here? But you were advocating for peace and you were telling them, we need to end it. We need to stop it. Like, don't send any more weapons, etc. Yeah. What was the reception like in the room after that speech? Like, did any of the European politicians, did any of them approach you, or how did that go afterwards?
Well, I told them, instead of all this war, why don't you pick up the phone and call the Russian counterparts? Actually, maybe even fly to Moscow or have them fly to Brussels or Rome or some other place. And that room was a little bit self-selected, meaning they knew that I was speaking and they chose to come there. So I wasn't imposed on them. So there were a lot of friendly faces in that room, but it circulated widely in Brussels afterwards. And there were others that were not so happy with what I said, because I told them, you're not doing your job. What is all the Russia hate? Okay, that's not going to get you security. That's not going to get you peace. The way to get peace is to talk to the other side. At least try. They don't even try. Until today, by the way. That's how ineffective I was. They still don't pick up the phone. And then they complain, America's negotiating without us. And I tell them, you don't have to wait for the United States to make a phone call, for God's sake. You pick up the phone. You go meet. They don't do that yet. It's really weird, actually. Weird is the only word I can give, a precise account of this. They're afraid. They don't have their own self-confidence. They are so used to depending on the United States. They believe their own rhetoric. I don't know what it is completely, but what they should do is open diplomacy with Russia and discuss these issues.
And speaking of talking to the other side, I remember when Tucker Carlson went to Moscow to interview Vladimir Putin, there was a lot of backlash from corporate media, including from some of his counterparts, former counterparts at Fox News. People did not want this conversation to happen. And my big thing is this. Why is it that, Zelensky is interviewed multiple times on corporate media? We always get his side of the story. It is very odd to me that nobody is interviewing Vladimir Putin. I think it's done on purpose. They don't want you to hear his side of the story. And I think that interview that Tucker Carlson did, it really woke a lot of people up. Like, whoa, we didn't hear this before. Yep. And it's shameful, I think, when I look at media, as someone in independent media, when I look at corporate media, it's shameful to me that you would only get one side of the story about a war that's been going on for over 2 years.
Actually, I say that the war has been going on for 11 years because I put the date to February 2014 when this started. It was at a lower level, but thousands of people were killed between 2014 and 2022. So I think that this has been going on for quite a while. I think Tucker did a great job making this interview. It was a very interesting interview in addition, but we have a bad idea that you don't talk to the other side. But this is really wrong. If you don't talk to the other side, of course, it's a little bit easier if you want to spin propaganda, but it's not a way to make peace or to settle issues or to understand the other side. We attribute motives to the other side that are just wrong. This is my own experience. I talk with the Russians, I talk with the Chinese, I talk all over the world, and I hear both sides or the multiple sides of an argument, and it's very helpful to understand because different perspectives are quite real. They're not just put out there for spin. People have different views of things, and we need to relearn the idea of diplomacy. And with diplomacy, part of the idea is you actually listen to the other side, not making faces and saying, you're an idiot, you're a liar, how dare you, but actually listen and then respond, and they have to listen, and then you respond. It's pretty basic, but we teach our kids that, but we don't necessarily see that in our presidents. But anyway, they're going to meet now, so maybe something good will happen. So I don't want to prejudge, but I don't think that you can solve this on Truth Social.
I don't think so either. And also when it comes to the other side, if we can pivot to economics for just a second, the tariffs, which I did try to warn people about when Trump re-entered the White House at the beginning of this year, that would impact us here in the United States as well. I don't know if this is Donald Trump trying to make some macho man move or whatever, but at this point, if I'm just looking at the data, China is soaring. They are rising. I don't think we can fault them for that. I just see them, that is a competitor. And it's interesting, a number of people who support free market and capitalism, they don't support that though.
Yeah,
so
that's very good. I've been going to China since 1981, so that's 44 years. And it went from a impoverished country to a booming country. And they worked hard on this, by the way. You could physically see with your own eyes how hard they were working, because sometimes you'd go to a place, I'd be driven to a place late at night, and the construction would be going on these buildings by torchlight almost in the middle of the night. In other words, they were building their country 24 hours around the clock for years, and they had a great success. And we shouldn't denigrate them for that. By the way, trading with China has been very good for most Americans, not for every American. If you're in a line of business where China's very successfully exporting the products you make at a lower price, you'll get hurt. If you're a consumer of those goods, you're benefited. The basic idea of trade is not that every single person benefits, but that we have a society in which we use taxes and training programs and education and public investment to make sure that net, everybody comes out ahead. But we don't do that. We just say, if someone's hurting in our country, first of all, our politicians are so bad. They don't take any care about people that are hurting. But what they do say is, oh, China did that. So they try to blame it on others without taking any responsibility themselves for doing the basic things that would make life better for Americans. So the whole name of the game is blame it on foreigners, blame it on others. Don't take responsibility for fixing things in our own country. That's the big problem.
Yeah. And even when it comes to the tariffs, I'm seeing more and more President Lula and BRICS in general proposing this idea of moving away from the US dollar. And I just don't see the US as a part of a multipolar world. I feel like we're becoming more and more isolationist. I feel like BRICS is growing and it's getting to the point where people just don't want to work with us. And what I tried to tell my viewers is that the West we're small when you compare us to the population in India, you compare us to the population in China, the rest of the world. We're not as big as we think we are.
Oh, bravo. You got it exactly right. And we can put some numbers on it. The United States is 335 million people. European Union is 450 million people. So you add it together, that's 800 million people. The world's 8 billion people. So if you take the US and Europe, we're one tenth of the world population. If you add in, other friends, so add in Canada, Britain, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the ones that we call the U.S. alliance, it comes to 12% of the world population. Maybe if you take a big expanded list, 15%. What about the other 85% of the world? Just India and China by themselves is nearly 40%. And so I say exactly what you're saying, which is, oh, we think we're so big, powerful. Trump thinks I can make demands of anybody. And the rest of the world saying, huh? Who is this guy? Yeah, we don't want to cross the U.S. We'd like to have normal relations, but get us to bow down? No, thank you. Get us to make agreements that are not in our interest? No, thank you. And the president of Brazil, who I adore, President Lula, said the most clear, explicit thing. He said, we don't need an emperor. So he said, look, we want to have normal relations with the U.S., but we don't need Emperor Donald. We don't need an American empire. Don't make demands, and we can have normal relations.
What are we doing wrong in this country economically? If you were to compare us to China, what are we doing wrong? Is it our infrastructure? Is it the job market? What do we do?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I travel a lot, and because countries that were poor 20 years ago have been built up tremendously fast in the last 20 or 25 years. So if you go to an airport elsewhere, you say, whoa, this is dazzling. If you come back to our airports, well, they're being rehabbed a bit, but you feel like you're back in the 1950s. My wife and I joke that we know we're back in America because the elevator doesn't work, the walkway doesn't work, staircase doesn't work, people are yelling at you. So it's, we need to invest. This is how you get ahead. We need to spend money on not war, but on modernizing our country. And we haven't done that. We have spent $7 trillion on wars since 2001, basically. We went to war after war after war after war. It's terrible. What a waste. We gave huge tax cuts to people who have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. And then we say, oh, there's no money in the budget for modernization or for protecting the environment or for, taking care of nature. So we're making a lot of bad choices. We just had one big, ugly bill called One Big Beautiful Bill. What was the point of this thing? First, it was a backroom operation, never debated, never discussed, filled with the hidden gifts to the rich that I don't even know about because, you only learn about these things in some page and hundreds of pages into a document way late. But it was a secret operation. The main point of the operation was tax cuts for the rich. And the main way to not balance the tax cuts, because they didn't even come close. This is a gusher of more red ink. But the main response was cut the health care of America's poorest people. Could this possibly be fair? Would we ever, in an open day, if we had a real discussion and things were really debated and deliberated by the American people, would we ever come to this? If we had a room of 1,000 Americans randomly selected, not paid for by lobbyists, but put into a room from all over the country and told, you can deliberate about the future of the United States. You can get any data you want. You can ask anybody you want their opinions. But in the end, you vote. Would they ever in a million years vote the One Big Beautiful Bill? No, nothing like it. They would say, Elon, pay some taxes. Come on, you have $300 billion, pay some taxes. They would say that to Bezos. They would say that to others high on the list. You add the top 18 or so billionaires, they've got something like 3 trillion of wealth. Pay some taxes so that the elevators work and the walkways work and and it's not just a broken down mess outside our homes.
And the bridges aren't falling apart.
And the bridges aren't falling apart, exactly.
Another one that people are dealing with. One of the things I wanted to pick your brain about is this idea of peace, because Kim McCarthy came onto the show a while back. He wrote a book about how JFK wanted to basically, I guess, hold Israel accountable when it came to nuclear weapons. And JFK wanted peace, wanted to move away from these wars. And some would argue that that's why JFK was assassinated, that's why he's no longer here. This is the fear I think that some people have. Some people feel as though if they are a presidential candidate and they run on this anti-war message, that they too will be JFK'd, right? And to that point, I have to say that I think you just have to be fierce and you have to push back against like those powers out there. But I think that what is starting to happen, and I'm noticing it from voters as well, they're like, well, of course, Trump's going to say this because he wants to play their game. People said the same thing in 2024 when Kamala Harris was running. They said, well, she has to say that because she's got to pretend to play their game. But then I look at the money that is attached to the political candidates, like money from AIPAC, money from Kufi. And it's just, I don't think they're not just playing a game. They bought into this system, and that's how they were allowed to go as far as they did. And I wonder if JFK would have lived, if he wasn't assassinated, does Israel get as far as it does? Does it get to this point where it's a tiny place, but it has so much power when it comes to U.S. politics? And what has happened to the Palestinian people? Does it get to that point if JFK lives?
Well, let me say, first of all, I also wrote a book about President Kennedy's peace efforts. It's called To Move the World, JFK's Quest for Peace. It's actually a book about the last year of his life, from the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis to the signing of a peace agreement with the Soviet Union called the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And Kennedy was the most gifted statesman in that year of any president that we've had in modern times. I think Franklin Roosevelt was our greatest president. Kennedy was the only one in my lifetime that I would say reached greatness. And on the question, was he killed for his peace efforts? I think there's a good argument for it. Of course, there are things that are not known, but the things that become more and more known suggest that this was a CIA action, at least an action in which James Angleton, who was the head of counter-espionage of the CIA, played an active role. And one of the things Kennedy said at one moment was that he wanted to take the CIA and tear it up into 1,000 pieces. And maybe they went and got him as a result of that. So Kennedy was a great peacemaker. He gave a speech on June 10, 1963. It's known in history as the Peace Speech. It's online. People can listen to it. It's just mesmerizing. My poor family, I made them listen probably 50 times as I was writing my book. So they all heard it again and again and again. Now, the role of Israel in all of this is highly controversial. What we can say is Angleton, who clearly had some relationship, perhaps the mastermind or the one who used Lee Harvey Oswald, because Oswald papers were in Angleton's safe, and Angleton lied about the relationship throughout his whole life. Angleton had close relations with Mossad. This is for sure true. And so that link exists. But there are many other links also. There's the Cuba link, the anti-Castro Cubans who definitely at some low level were engaged in this conspiracy, or I don't say definitely, but I think very highly likely. There was the mob, which was involved as well. So there's a lot that isn't sure, but Kennedy resisted Israel's attempt to get atomic weapons. This is for sure. And the Israelis were very unhappy about that, and they were determined to get atomic weapons. And it seems very likely that James Angleton played a role with Mossad in facilitating Israel getting atomic weapons. So there are all sorts of things that need to be better understood. What I would say is, though, Kennedy had a lot of enemies among the war party, whether it was Vietnam, whether it was Cuba, perhaps Israel, but he had a lot of enemies, and I think it was a conspiracy to kill him. And I think what you said is also true, and some historians have said, ever since Kennedy's assassination, no president has been an independent actor because they're all scared. And, you know, what motivates Trump? Do the Epstein files motivate Trump? It's quite possible. That's not some crazy idea. There's, I would say, overwhelming evidence that Epstein was a Mossad asset, and that all the stuff with Epstein had Israel blackmail around it. What's Epstein doing meeting repeatedly with Israeli leaders during this period? And you watch the behavior of the political class, including Trump. They don't say a word that's honest about this stuff. So, you know, you have enough reason to say, whoa, something weird is really going on there.
And how was Epstein able to get a job as a college professor, and said that he graduated from Harvard? The Harvard alumni circle is,
Yeah.
I mean, people know if you went to Harvard.
Yeah. No, and he was deeply involved in MIT. There was so many weird things that make sense if you put it into the context of a Mossad operation. And I think it most likely was.
Even when we look at someone like RFK, who, based on what I've read and the videos that I've watched, it seems like RFK probably would have won if he wasn't killed. And it seemed like he really found a way to energize the young people, the anti-war movement. And then he also was assassinated. And a lot of times people go back to JFK and RFK because they look at them and they feel like that seems like that was the last time.
Yeah, RFK, I was 14 at the time. RFK was the great first political love of my life. Of course, I knew President Kennedy, but I was much younger. But RFK, that was the campaign, and he stirred people, and he inspired, and he was going to be president. And certainly, people knew that he was going to go after the secrets of the assassination. And that's definitely one motivation. And there are so many things wrong with the conventional narrative that Sirhan by himself committed this crime, including the fact that the chief coroner rejected that conclusion, saying that it was the forensic evidence runs completely against it. Sirhan was in the front, but Kennedy was shot behind the right ear, and the shots came from a different direction. And a lot of eyewitnesses saw multiple people with guns, and were so many things wrong with the LAPD investigation, so-called, and so many links with the CIA that seems to have shut down the investigation, that you're just led to absolute despair over this. Of course, it was 4 people who were systematically killed in this period, the 2 Kennedys, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And that was snuffing out the chance for a new America in the 1960s, no doubt about it.
Why do you think RFK Jr. Has the position that he has on Israel? When he first announced that he was running, there were more people that were in favor of a lot of the things he was talking about. He was talking about the CIA, how it was a problem, et cetera. And as time went by, then October 7th happened and people saw his position on Israel. And a lot of us were like, whoa, what is wrong with this guy? Like, it was really weird to me. Do you feel that RFK Jr. Is it because he was on Epstein's jet as well, which he has acknowledged? Doesn't mean he did anything on that island. Do you feel like they tried to blackmail him? Well, why does he have that staunch position on Israel?
I don't know. I asked him the same question. I did not get a satisfactory answer. We're friends. We're classmates. We've known each other for a half century. So I like Bobby a lot. But I don't agree with him on this issue, of course.
Yeah, that was one we scratched our heads about. And when it comes to Gaza, what is the future for Gaza in your opinion? Right now, Donald Trump, I just don't believe any of this anymore, is announcing that, oh, we have a ceasefire agreement coming forward and things are going to work out great for the Palestinian people. And I envision that they're going to continue killing them, or they're going to make them leave regardless. I see it as ethnic cleansing. I don't know how Israel gets away with this in the world's view. Like, the world is turned against Israel.
Yes, that's
the numbers
correct.
show that as well. I just don't understand, like, what is the future for the Palestinian people after this?
I wrote an open letter to Israel's foreign minister, which I posted yesterday, which if people are interested, they can find on Common Dreams. I sat behind the foreign minister at the UN Security Council last week, and I was really, really taken aback by the words of the foreign minister. I found them outrageous, especially since this man was representing a government that is systematically starving 2 million people, many of them dying now of their starvation. So you could find a detailed account of my views. The basic view is that in a not a hidden way, the government of Israel says that they're going to control all of Palestine. They're not going to leave the occupied territories. Now, there are 3 occupied territories of Palestine, meaning territories that were captured in the 1967 war. If you go back to the borders before that war, the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, you have Gaza, you have the West Bank, and you have East Jerusalem. There are about roughly 6 million Palestinian Arabs living in those 3 areas, and another 2 million living in Israel itself. Under international law, Israel is illegally occupying Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. It should leave, and those 3 places should become a state of Palestine. That's the so-called 2-state solution. It would work. It would be peaceful. It would be a solution. It's supported by more than 180 countries in the world. So what stops it? Of course, Israel stops it first because Israel says, no, we are going to control everything. Second, it's the United States. The U.S. is the only major country in the world that supports Israel's extremism. Not just supports it, funds it, and arms it. So this is a joint U.S.-Israeli genocide that's underway right now. The U.S. is actively complicit in this. The American people are against this. The latest Gallup survey showed about 70% of Americans siding with Palestine and about 30% approving of Israel. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. But American foreign policy is not made by the American people. It's made by lobbyists. It's made by military contractors. It's made by money It's made by insider interests. It's made by blackmail, as we were talking about. It's made by many things. And so our policy is complicity in genocide. Now, if you ask, what does Israel really want? Whatever they say day to day, it has been Netanyahu's whole political career to oppose a state of Palestine. And Likud, which is his political party, in its founding charter, says explicitly, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Israel will be sovereign. So it's ironic that it came to be said by the US government that the chant from the river to the sea is anti-Semitic. It's actually a line directly out of the Likud political charter, but meaning that Israel will dominate the Palestinian people. And then you rightly ask, well, how could that ever be? There are 8 million Palestinian Arabs, 8 million Jews. Well, the only answer is expel them or kill them, starve them, or dominate them through apartheid. And that's Israel's approach. It varies day by day or month or year by year, but the approach is outright hostility. But it's worse than that because it's so blatant and so vulgar that other governments in the region said, no, this is outrageous. We support the Palestinian cause. And Iran supported Hezbollah and Hamas to some extent. And Israel's approach is not, well, maybe we should compromise, maybe we should have two states and so forth. Their approach is, well, we have to go to war with any government that supports the Palestinian cause. And since Israel is a small country, they look to the United States. Hey, you go to war for us. Netanyahu's the one that told us go to war with Iraq in 2003. People can go on the internet and find Netanyahu speaking to Congress in the fall of 2002 saying it's going to be a great war. It's going to inspire everybody. It's going to bring peace. It's going to be wonderful. He's a jerk and always has been a jerk. And he got the U.S. into lots of wars. So what's going to happen now? There are more than 180 countries that say a state of Palestine, and many more joining day by day right now. Australia most recently, France and Britain saying that they'll recognize the state of Palestine. This is almost the whole world now. It's just Israel, the United States, and a handful of countries that resist. And most of these countries are tiny. Micronesia, Nauru, Vanuatu. I dare people to point them out on the map. They're tiny. These are little Pacific islands. Some of them by law have to vote with the U.S. and Paraguay and Argentina. Okay, it's about 6 that oppose, but all the rest say two-state solution. If there is going to be peace, all that has to happen is Donald Trump needs to say, okay, we recognize the state of Palestine. Gaza is going to belong to the Palestinians. Actually, the Arab states all through the region would support a demilitarization and a local governance by the Palestinians. They would back it up financially. They would back up the rebuilding financially. They've said so repeatedly. But the United States, till this moment, says, no, 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 we support Israel. Israel has the right to exist. A right to exist is not the right to exterminate another people.
That is a very good quote there. But things are looking somewhat hopeful in different ways. This is a big story that just came out. Norway, it appears that their wealth fund, the wealth fund of Norway, just divested from 11 Israeli companies. This is a huge story. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of it, but it seems like more people are willing to divest from Israel as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. They divested from 11. There are about 40 others that they still invest in. So when it was announced, people said, okay, not a bad first step, but keep going. So we'll see what happens. But yes, it was a real step a couple of days ago.
Yes, indeed. And two more things for you, Professor Sachs. You're at Columbia University. I think under the Biden administration, it seems like to me, they were shocked at the rise of the students denouncing this genocide in Gaza. And it almost seemed like they didn't really know how to respond to this at first, at least. And Columbia has a deep history with this, as so does Harvard, standing up against apartheid South Africa. So this was not the first time. Why do you feel like the press and in particular the police more so heavily targeted the protesters at Columbia University? And they targeted them at other universities too, but it seemed like to me the crackdown was so much greater at Columbia University when you compare it to some of the other colleges.
Well, it was very visible protest, but to claim that Columbia University is an anti-Semitic institution is just about the most ridiculous imaginable claim in the world. Oh my God, are you kidding? I can't even go there. It's so absurd. But that is the meme because the Israel lobby is pushing this, and Trump is pushing this nonsense. And it's vulgar. It's so totally phony. You don't even know where to start.
And the students were on the right side of history.
The students are protesting a genocide. For God's sake, if you can't protest a genocide, what can you protest?
Exactly. And to that point, you made a bold move in 2024 for the presidential eletion. You, I think, was the first person to publicly endorse Dr. Jill Stein, which I voted for as well. Did you receive any type of pushback or any type of criticism because you endorsed Jill Stein? And I'm asking because there are a number of people that are telling me even today, they're still getting flack from people for voting for Jill Stein or supporting Jill Stein. And I said to my audience that Jill Stein's campaign was the left campaign. It really was. And if you supported like a lot of those progressive policies, that was over at the Jill Stein campaign. I didn't see that at Kamala's campaign. I think Kamala blew it when she said that she wouldn't do anything different from Biden. I think she blew it when she said she wouldn't withhold weapons from Israel. And somehow, some people believe Trump when he said that he was going to end all of the wars, et cetera. But did you receive any type of pushback for endorsing Jill Stein?
Well, look, I have said that the Democrats and the Republicans, when it comes to foreign policy, what's the difference? One is warmongering. The other is warmongering. So, this is absolutely awful. Every presidency for the last, since at least Clinton, I've said, oh my God, can't they do better than this? I'm an unhappy camper, I have to tell you. Whenever I hear, oh, if the Democrats can just get back in, I was a Democrat for most of my life, but there's almost no one to talk to in the Democratic Party. You look at who are the real warmongers, it's almost always bipartisan. You have Lindsey Graham, who I regard as the stupidest senator in the U.S. Senate, and Richard Blumenthal, and they're always together, one on the Republican side, one on the Democratic side. And in general, there are very few politicians I like, by the way. I like Ro Khanna in the Congress. I like Rand Paul. He's a libertarian Republican, but he's honest and he's not warmongering and he's a nice guy and he's smart, by the way. But so many of the people that I'm supposed to like, because that was my political party, I gave up on. And I thought Biden was a terrible president, absolutely terrible. And I think Trump is, oh my God, I don't know how, I'm hoping we're going to survive this, but it's one after the other. They just don't do their job.
Do you think that we'll ever see a third party candidate get further in the race? Do you ever think we'll see a third party candidate win the White House or an independent?
It's so hard because of the nitty gritty rules. In the end, I believe Jill did not get on the ballot in New York. She didn't get the signatures. You get lawsuits everywhere. It's it's an oligarchy of these two parties to prevent new voices. But you can never say never in politics, and we need a breakthrough. And American history shows at times a new party rising, and it's so compelling that you get mass support. And the problem in the U.S. has been that mass support has been equated with big money backing. But then you're already sold out by the time you do that. I advised Bernie Sanders in 2016. You could see how the establishment basically killed his campaign, even though he was by far the enthusiastic, the one enthusiastically backed by the voters. So it's very hard, but we need it. I think we need a peace party, actually. We need a party that is based on peace, because peace is not the domestic agenda, but there is no domestic agenda if we're a war economy and a military-industrial complex and a CIA-led foreign policy. Then we don't get anywhere. And we need to recover even our constitutional government from the military-industrial complex. So I think the right approach is a peace party.
Professor Jeffrey Sachs, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Great to be with you. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Whoops, didn't realize I was muted. Sorry about that, guys. Talked to him earlier this morning. And yes, we will have some pretty cool guests. I don't know. We've done pretty well with guests the past week. It just so happened that all three of them were available this week. Whitney Webb will be here Thursday, so that'll be her second time on the show. I have so much to dive into with Whitney about. So much to get into, ladies and gents. All right, now we have 4 more stories that I do want to cover. Again, the theme tonight is Turn Down for What? Let's go ahead and give shout outs here. Get to some of the super chats. Thank you so much, TJ White, for the super sticker. Thank you. Thank you, Wandy. What is DSA? Sachs, awesome guest, Sabby. DSA is Democratic Socialists of America. That is DSA. And thank you for the super sticker, Billo Gali. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get the comment from Roger on Rockfin. At least I think that says Roger. Yes. Thank you so much, Roger. It has recently come to my attention that there is a trade-off that has allowed China to surpass us in what they do. The main reason why China is able to grow so much is because they sacrifice their land. I think you mean land and workers and environment by taxing their labor and environmental laws and regulations. Professor Sachs just said they're building 24/7. There's no workplace regulation, law, or union that would allow their workers to be working at night. The trade-off is severe environmental degradation, public health crisis, social inequality, and long-term economic risk. While these policies fueled rapid industrialization, they created challenges that China is now addressing. I didn't even mention those pictures that I've seen about the slave labor camps to get those minerals in Africa. Interesting. All right. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not done so, go ahead and smash that like button. And we're going to go ahead and dive into the next story. Don't forget to answer that poll. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is crazy times out there, folks. But some of you predicted that this would happen. If you have not heard about this, Donald Trump has basically announced a takeover in Washington, D.C. He is saying that this has to deal with crime. I don't think this is about crime. I think this is about something else that I am going to get into. But people are protesting against it. Of course, you can see here happening now, thousands of protesters gather in D.C. in Trump's takeover of the city chanting, "Free DC, he can't take it." Let's check this out.
Free DC! Free DC! Free DC! Free DC! Protect home rule! 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 Protect home rule!
Protect this morning because Trump is trying to take over DC. He's having a press conference and he wants to assert more of his authority over DC, and we are here to say he can't have it. Stay with me. He can't have it.
He can't have it!
Trump can't have it.
Trump can't have it!
DC is our home.
DC is our home!
We are just some of the hundreds of thousands of people who live here in DC.
Yeah. So this news, I think, really shook some people the other day, what Donald Trump has decided to do here in DC. But I think that people are looking at this from a different lens than I am. Now, earlier this morning, I was on Jamal Thomas's show and we were talking about this. And there was an article. I saw the article after I was on his show. Someone sent me an article and I went through it and I said, oh, my gosh, that's what this is really about. This isn't really about crime. Right. And you'll see that when I show you the top cities that have the highest crime rate. Nevertheless, he moved forward with bringing in the National Guard, announced that he was going to take over the police in Washington, D.C. It's crazy times. People have to understand how D.C. operates. D.C., of course, is not a state. They have a mayor, but because it's not a state, it doesn't have a governor. Even some of the rules that they want to implement in D.C. has to be approved by Congress. It's kind of crazy when you think about it for those of us that don't live in DC, because we have governors and there is a process and we take care of those things locally and Congress is not involved. The announcement came just the other day. People are losing their cool, folks. Check it out.
President Trump declaring a public safety emergency, saying he's activated 800 National Guard members in the nation's capital and has now placed the DC Police Department under federal control, saying that Attorney General Pam Bondi will, quote, take command. This takeover is happening as the president says that crime in the city is out of control, despite officials saying that certain crimes in the city have hit a 30-year low. Watch this.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. If necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the Guardsmen, and that'll take place very rapidly.
Pause here for a second. Who do you think is going to be targeted? Let's do, you don't have to do math for this, but just imagine, who do you think is going to be the primary targets? When I heard this announcement, I was greatly concerned about the homeless population, people who have nowhere to go. The police often come after them anyway. I also thought about, of course, Black communities in DC. Now, there is gentrification that has happened in DC, but still, I just want people to think about that for a second. Who do you think they're going to go after? I actually have a video showing you that already happening. Let's continue on a little bit here.
CNN's Brian Todd is closely following this story for us. So, Brian, take us through President Trump's order and what else he's threatening, because he says he might activate the military.
That's right, Boris. He says he is kind of reserving the option to activate additional military units in Washington, D.C. if need be. He then later said he didn't think he would need them, but he's going to keep that option open. He is also considering at least expanding the National Guard deployment to other cities. He named Chicago and New York City. But let's see how this plays out in Washington, D.C. first. We do have some sourced reporting from three sources familiar with the matter saying that both the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Pamela Smith did not know of President Trump's announcement prior to when he made the announcement. They were caught kind of unaware of this prior to when he made the announcement this morning. As you see the graphic there, the president plans to mobilize some 800 National Guard members on the city streets here in D.C. to put the D.C. police under federal control. That is unprecedented, by the way. A president of the United States has never taken control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department before.
But they're able to do it. You know why? They're able to do it because DC is not a state. That's why he's able to do this. I also see this as an abuse of the National Guard. This is not what the National Guard is for. I mean, you would have thought, honestly, if you didn't live here in the US and you heard about this news, oh, we send it to the National Guard, you would have thought that something crazy just happened in DC and that there was a reason to send them in. But that's not the case. And I'm not here to be the first to say that DC is the safest city. It's not, but it's not. The way that they're talking about crime in DC, it's hilarious to me because there are other cities that have higher crime rates. I believe that what you see happening in DC right now is a test. I believe that DC is the test for what could come to other cities. Now, there were some of us that sounded the alarm about the cop cities a couple of years ago. I told you guys that this country is increasingly becoming a police state. And it's not just about person-to-person crime. What do you think is going to happen with more protest? If the federal government, if they come in and say, oh, well, you're protesting against Israel, we consider that to be a crime. Now, all of a sudden, you have all these protesters that are getting arrested for peacefully protesting. I'm thinking about this down the line, right? Like when I say turn down, like now is not the time to go asleep. And I know some people, I've spoken to some of you, people just feel like there's nothing they can do. People feel like, well, I'm just going to go to sleep and just dream this away and wake up a couple years later when this is all over. But now is not the time to go to sleep. That's why I say turn down for what? It's not that time. People have to really pay attention to everything that is going on right now. We have watched them increase surveillance. Now, that didn't start under Trump, but is continuing. And they're ramping it up. Increased surveillance. They want to invade your privacy. They are increasing the police state. This country is becoming less and less and less free over time.
Also, FBI agents are going to be patrolling with the police department here. That is also a very rare occurrence, according to our sources. It's very rare for FBI agents to patrol with police in a local police in any given city. Already some pushback here in the district from this, but let's first hear from President Trump. I'll get to the pushback in a moment, but here's what President Trump had to say about what he hopes the police could do in the city.
See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. You can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there and people are spitting in their face and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
Did you hear that? Allowed to do whatever the hell they want. You see, and let me make something very clear here, okay? First of all, Donald Trump is doing everything except for releasing those damn Epstein files. Oh, no, I haven't forgotten. And you shouldn't forget either. He is doing everything. I do feel like I said before, like every time people keep bringing up the Epstein files, it's, oh, let's give a $50 million bond for Maduro. Oh, let's bring in the police in DC and let's just take over DC. Oh, this, oh, that. Everything except for releasing those damn Epstein files. And DC is the test, but it's not just a test of, oh, let's bring the National Guard to combat crime. That's not what this is about. In fact, the numbers show, the data shows that crime has decreased in DC. He also brought up Baltimore. I have something to show you about Baltimore as well. My family is from Baltimore. Baltimore crime has also decreased. Those aren't even the top cities with crimes in the country right now. Now, Donald Trump knows that. But he has to convince his base, he has to tell them, oh, those numbers are wrong, so that they'll agree to go along with this. Crazy stuff, ladies and gents.
The president promising a very tough crackdown on crime here in D.C. And again, we mentioned some pushback to this. The D.C. Attorney General, Brian Schwab, has issued this statement, quote, the administration's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. There is no crime emergency in the District of Columbia. Violent crime in D.C. reached historic 30-year lows last year and is down another 26% so far this year. We are considering all of our options and will do what's necessary to protect the rights and safety of district residents. Attorney General Schwab is correct there when he says that crime is down in D.C. According to the D.C. Metropolitan Police, Violent crime is down 26%. Assaults with a dangerous weapon down 20%. Robberies down 29%. And crime overall is at historic lows in this city, Boris. We also got some pushback from council member Charles Allen of the D.C. City Council, saying this is doing this under the guise of public safety is, quote, wrong. It's an extreme, outrageous, and dangerous move for the city.
Exactly. Especially when I don't think this is what this is really all about. I want to show you they're already doing it. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., when I told you, who do you think they are going to target? Watch this.
How y'all doing today? Y'all staying in that trouble? You got your ID on you, Chip?
No, I live right here.
Okay, cool.
It's a cigarette. Did y'all get a call or something right here?
No, so we're doing checks, keeping everybody safe down here, right? Have you heard of the federal surge that Donald Trump's putting out?
No.
Right. You don't follow like Code 3, anything like that people are putting up. All right, so yeah, Trump's got all federal agencies kind of coming together for 7 days and going out, trying to stop the violent crime, all kind of stuff. So we're out here contacting people, talking to them, right? Quality of life offense is smoking, drinking in public, right? Can't happen outside, right? Most people know that.
So notice he asked him, what are you smoking, right? What are you smoking, right? Now, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought DC had decriminalized marijuana. I thought that was all good to go. I don't know. But he said he lives there. So you can't sit on the stoop and just chill with your friends. You're being approached by, this is what I mean by it's a police state, guys. That's what is happening here. This is insane. What's next? They're going to put people under a curfew?
Contacting people, trying to advise them of the law so they learn, right? And then if there's other stuff going on where it turns into there's multiple agencies of somebody, there's a shooting and things like that. So there's extra hands as well, right? So we're just out here trying to inform people and educate people. It's not like we're trying to just go grab people and ruin someone's life over a joint or something like that, all right?
I only asked because when you walked up, at the moment you walked up, you only had eggs.
Yeah, well, it smelled like the odor of marijuana, burnt marijuana in the air, right? And you're the only guy that had something lit in your hand, and I didn't flashlight you, so I didn't realize it was just a cigarette. So that's on me. I appreciate you understanding and not getting chippy. All right, so just know, right? Learn, teach, tell your boys, like, yo, everybody's out, from FBI to park police. Right? So do your thing. Let them know. Don't be smoking outside. Don't be drinking outside. Because Donald Trump is tired of it. People coming to visit.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know smoking in public?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the reciprocal.
Because in Maryland, there's recreational use, so I didn't know.
Yeah, so DC, it's recreational use as well, right? But you can legally possess up to 2 ounces. You can gift an ounce to your boy, right? So if you had 2 ounces and he said he needed a zip, you can give him a zip, but you can't smoke outside.
So now they coming after people for smoking outside. So now you can't smoke outside. What did I tell you? Who do you think that they were going to target? They're going up to black people. They're going into the black neighborhood saying, oh, what are you smoking? What happened to privacy? What happened to, your rights as an American in this country? So here we go. Now the weed thing, first of all, the marijuana thing shouldn't even be a topic anymore. A lot of states have legalized marijuana, including mine here in Massachusetts. He says, well, you're not supposed to be smoking it outside. Okay, seriously? So they're looking for any little thing. Nobody wants to live under this type of conditions. This is absolutely ridiculous. Now, they're not going to go to, the wealthier. They're not going to go to Georgetown. They're not going to go. There's politicians that live in Georgetown. They're not going to go to Georgetown and ask them, hey, what are you smoking? No, they're going to go to certain neighborhoods. And then there's this part. Benny Johnson came in, and here he is, not only, of course, agreeing with it because he's a Trump supporter, but also advocating for the displacement of people in D.C. You got to believe that. Check this out.
And if you are a proud patriot and you love this country and you wish for it to be reflected honorably to the peoples of Earth, then Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed, I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to, you're just going to have to crack down. You're going to have to do the job, and you're going to have to get the crime out of Washington. That's my personal experience. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear online from some reporters. Oh, crime's down in D.C. Well, my infant nearly died in a drug fire after mass shootings. So no, D.C. is not safe. And I can tell you this as a matter of fact, it is one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. In that neighborhood that I would walk every single day, racial epithets were screamed at us, rocks were thrown at us because we were white people. This city is a sunken place. It is an unsafe place. I mean, if that's what happens to me, imagine what happens to somebody who's visiting here from a foreign country.
First of all, a couple of things. DC, number one, is not a state. It is a district, Benny. Two, I don't know. Maybe those things were thrown towards you because of the BS that you say on your show, like the BS that you're saying right now. This guy is sitting up here advocating for the displacement of people in DC. Who do you think he's talking about? He's talking about the black people. He is promoting gentrification. He wants them gone. Listen, Benny, you feel that unsafe? If you're that worried and you're that scared, how about you just go somewhere where you feel as though you may not have to be around people that don't look like you? Because that's what it sounds like to me. Also, your personal experience doesn't mean that the data that has been signed here, this is from the FBI, the data from the FBI is incorrect. So that's like saying, if there is a report that comes out of Massachusetts, I'm in Massachusetts, comes out of Massachusetts that says, hey, guess what? Car accidents are down. But you got into a car accident earlier this morning. That doesn't mean the data is wrong. And here they are advocating for the removal of the people. I would say I think it's unbelievable, but at this point it's not. This is why I say turn down for what? So here's what the data shows. Trump says Washington is unsafe, but the data tells a more nuanced story. So we'll show you the data here, ladies and gents. Among major cities in the United States, Washington does have high rates of violent crime and murder, but it has a much lower rate of violent crime than some cities Trump hasn't spotlighted, like Memphis, Tennessee. See, this is what I was trying to tell you guys, right? Now, let's go to the percentages. The Metropolitan Police Department reported a 35% drop in violent crime and a 15% decrease in overall crime from 2023 to 2024. That's the data. Because it does not fit Trump's narrative, he's going to tell you that the data is wrong. It tells you also crime categories fell between 2% theft not related to cars and 64% in reference to arson. Homicides, 274 homicides reported, higher than any year since 2005, according to the Metropolitan Police Department. We have to be mindful that what we had almost historic peaks in these crimes. And so we're going to have to get back to par first. And we're still working that way and we're coming closer. So violent crime has been down in 2025. Violent crime in DC through August 8th dropped 26%. So let me explain things, ladies and gents, what Trump isn't going to tell you. Obviously, once we entered the pandemic and cities started to lock down, you were going to see a sharp decrease. So that was under Trump's administration. So he's using those numbers to say, look at what it was when I was president. Look at what it is now. We were also locked down. So everybody had lower crime rates, right? Once the lockdowns ended and people were out and about again, of course, the crime rate is now going to increase. And now that it's been a couple of years since that pandemic first started, now you are starting to see the rates go back down. It's really common sense when you think about it, but it's frustrating to me is that people aren't even looking at the common sense, right? So look at this, the full list of America's most dangerous cities as Trump cracks down on DC. Let me go to this list. because he wants you to believe it's DC and it's not, right? Trump only mentioned 2 of the following as potential federalization targets, Chicago and Baltimore. Number 1 is Memphis, Tennessee. Can I make it bigger so you guys can see? Number 1 is Memphis, Tennessee, not DC. 2 is Cleveland. 3 is Toledo, Ohio. 4 is Little Rock. 5 is Peoria, Illinois. 6 is Springfield, Illinois. 7 is Detroit. 8 is Akron, Ohio. 9 is Beaumont, Texas. 10 is Rockford, Illinois. Evansville, Indiana. Then 12 is Dayton, Ohio. 13, Nashville. 14, Winston-Salem. 15, Springfield, Missouri. 16, Chicago. 17, Salt Lake City. Even Salt Lake City is up here. 18, Springfield, Massachusetts. I can attest to that. 19, North Charleston, South Carolina. 20, Corpus Christi, Texas. 21, Tulsa, Oklahoma. 22, Albany, New York. 23, Buffalo, New York. 24, Kansas City, Missouri. 25, Shreveport, Louisiana. 26, Baltimore is all the way down here, 26. That's important. I'll get to that in a second. 27 is Houston, Texas. 28, New Haven, Connecticut. 29, Las Cruces, New Mexico. And 30, Lansing, Michigan. So this is not really about the crime. Now, again, this is why many of us, what you see happening with Donald Trump right now, this is why many of us were advocating for DC statehood, so that DC could have more power, more control over its own city, instead of the federal government having so much control over it. And you know who wanted that to not happen? That would have to be Joe Biden. Shout out to Professor Zinkus for this. Joe Biden killed DC's movement for self-governance when he pushed Congress to pass a bill overturning the DC City Council's criminal justice reform, setting the stage for what Donald Trump is doing right now with the National Guard. Does everybody remember this? Joe Biden sabotages Democrats' DC statehood dream. That was March 3rd, 2023. It's like I've continued to say, folks, Donald Trump basically, it's almost like the Democrats gave Donald Trump a stepping stool. And he continues to basically capitalize off of these things that the Democrats did. It's an absolute mess when you think about it. But it's not just about that. There's another piece here. He is also calling out Baltimore. Now, my family is from Baltimore. Yes, Baltimore has had huge issues with crime, but their new mayor has actually changed that. And that's what Donald Trump doesn't tell you. When he made these remarks, he said this issue directly impacts the functioning of every federal government and is a threat to America. And down here, you'll see, look at Chicago, how bad it is. Look at LA, how bad it is. New York is a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore. So let's get into Baltimore, since Trump thinks that he knows what he's talking about. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott reduced his city's homicide rate by 62%, and nobody's talking about it. It hasn't been this low since 1978. You can see the graph here. Look at how low the homicide rate is now in Baltimore. That is significant, but Trump isn't going to tell you that, right? So we go on here and it says, here's some of the things that he did. He employed 5 measures to bring the murder rate down to its lowest since 1978. 1, comprehensive violence prevention plan. In 2021, he started the comprehensive violence prevention plan. What else did he do? Let's continue here. He targeted interventions for high-risk individuals, which identifies and supports those most likely to be involved in gun violence through outreach, social services, and job opportunities. He implemented community engagement. He had data-driven metrics, regular tracking of progress, which has shown results such as 66% decrease in shooting victims and a 31% drop in aggravated assaults. 4, Brandon Scott also implemented group violence reduction strategy, which focuses on group-related violence by gangs or crews by offering individuals a choice, accept social services and support to exit violent lifestyles, or face swift enforcement if they continue. Initially, it piloted in select districts. The program was expanded citywide in 2025. Goes on to say that Scott has publicly credited GVRS for ongoing crime reductions, noting its role in lowering homicides to levels not seen in 50 years by mid-2025. But this is who he mentioned. Also, he had a focus on youth and equitable development. Drawing from his own experiences growing up in Baltimore's Park Heights neighborhood, Scott has prioritized youth services to prevent crime at its roots. So he invested in more after-school programs, job training, etc. So see, this is why I say you have to do your own research. You cannot just believe what these politicians tell you. You have to look for yourself. But I told you, I don't really believe this is about crime. Here's what I think Donald Trump is trying to do. Remember that conversation a while back about freedom cities? You see, Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies like Peter Thiel, you see, they wanted to advocate for freedom cities. Says here that freedom cities are a devious scam. The president and his Silicon Valley oligarch pals want to bring back old company towns of yesteryear with a fresh coat of modern crypto fascist varnish. There was a warning sent out about this. This was in March. Tech bros love to repackage old ideas as innovation. We've all seen it, but their latest foray into disruption, no one else wants, the so-called network state and its constellation of startup cities deserves our attention. This notion has been embraced by Trump, who is re-Christian from freedom cities. In reality, the scheme is a techno-fascist vision of the future that's been quietly but persistently pushed and funded by billionaires such as Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Brian Armstrong, and Sam Altman for years. Despite the shiny marketing materials for places like Prospera and California Forever, which make outlandish promises of futuristic utopias, the startup city as a concept is a modern ketamine-infused repackaging of something that flopped onto obsolescence long ago, the company town. Now, they give an example here, and I learned about this from the A. Philip Randolph book, where he talked about the Pullman car company. You see, back in the day, this was actually a thing. Back in the day, they had like these company towns, and Pullman cars were a part of that. The company town framework gained steam during the Industrial Revolution. Pullman, Illinois, is a notorious American example. George Pullman, who owned the Pullman Palace Car Company, forced people to work interminable hours in unforgiving factory conditions, and he paid them in scrip that was worthless outside his own stores. In 1893, Pullman cut workers' wages by 25% without lowering the rent on their homes, not to mention their grocery prices in those same company stores, which led to fierce labor organization efforts and the bloodiest strike America has ever seen. And those labor efforts were led by people like Philip Randolph. So in these company towns, what you have to understand is like basically everything there was owned by the company. So like the retail stores were Pullman. So if you worked for the Pullman car company, you could only shop at the retail stores that were owned by Pullman. So it was like a company town, a real company town. If I remember correctly, I think the apartments that they stayed in were also like owned by Pullman. Right. So this whole idea of these freedom cities that Peter Thiel is signed on to, and Sam Altman, and they're all in bed with Donald Trump, they want to push something like this. I don't believe that Donald Trump is testing DC for crime. Like I said, the numbers don't reflect that when you look at the actual data, despite what Donald Trump says. I do believe that DC may be a testing ground for the freedom cities. And if that's the case, we're in freaking trouble. What it means is more corporate control, more corporate ownership, less by the people. That also would not be good for small businesses. Now you wonder, well, why would Donald Trump want to sign on board for something like that? Because that's what his donors want. People don't donate money to you, to your campaign, just to be nice. They donate money to get something in return. This is what I believe is really happening. I believe that they're trying to test this out, that they do want to go forward with this idea of the freedom, cities. And I think DC is that testing ground, just like Atlanta was the testing ground for Cop City. And then they continued to build more. It doesn't make sense when I show you the data of the cities, the top 30 cities that have the most person-to-person crime. DC isn't even on that list. So if it was really about crime, why not target Memphis, Tennessee, which is number 1, which I don't think he should anyway. This is absolutely ridiculous and it's insane. But everybody better pay attention. Everybody, again, now is not the time to go to sleep. Turn down for what? Because all of these types of moves, all these billionaires and these corporations are making, that is going to affect your privacy, your security, and of course, your wallet. At the end of the day, it all comes down to money. Pay close attention. Let's get to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gents. Charlotte said, where's the Epstein videos? Bingo. There you go. There you go. Wu said that's how they used to run the coal mine towns like that in the Appalachian Mountains. Yep. They want to give them more control. Thank you for the super chat, Gilbert. This is all for big balls. Thank you, Roger. Baltimore mayor made crime drop 62%, largest since 1977. Sab, can your family confirm this claim? Probably so. Probably so. Thank you, Matless. If you want to get crime out of DC, then arrest Congress, POTUS, and the lobbyists. Start there, right? The real crooks, the real ones. Eric, can we go to part 2 of Type B and C? Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Trump also was telling the homeless to leave DC, or they're going to arrest them. They're going to arrest them. They'll be the first to go. Thank you, Wandy. Benny Miga is 100% lying, typical Zionist. Thank you. Where's the love? 8 hours ago, Mayor had a press conference at a freaking bus stop with the chief of police. These chicks are cool with what's going to happen to Black folks. Isn't it sad? Thank you, Goba. The deafening silence of the DNC shows us what a scam this democracy is. It is increasingly authoritarian oligarchy. Yep. Thank you, Roger. You reading the book, Sabby? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm learning so much about A. Philip Randolph. Thank you, Matless. Sabby, we already live in a company town, no matter where you live in the U.S. WTF do you think? Oh, what the fuck do you think the U.S. dollar is? It is company script. The Federal Reserve dollar is privately owned. Professor Zinkus, what's up? There's an old country song from the 1940s called 16 Tons, which is about life in a coal mining town. And it has the line, I sold my soul to the company store. Thank you, Courtney. Could part of the reason be that those homicide and crimes in Baltimore are low because many of them don't get reported, just like here in Chicago? I don't think that was the case from what I read about with Baltimore. I can always ask my family members, but no, because the crimes were still reported when they were high. You know what I mean? So Baltimore cops are pretty prevalent in the hood. Thank you, Skylar. Tech bros have freedom cities in South America too. There you go. I'm telling you guys, this whole move towards smart cities and freedom cities and all this stuff, these are moves to benefit the billionaire class. And a lot of times, especially the corporate politicians, this is what they want to do. They want to benefit that class of people. That's right. Okay. And I think we're moving on to the next story. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. We're continuing on with Turn Down for What? This next story, we are going to do a bit of a deep dive because I have to go there to break down everything. DSA, also known as Democratic Socialists of America, in my opinion, it appears that there is infiltration in that organization. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was infiltration at the very beginning. And I have some receipts to show you. They recently took a vote to vote against or for fighting Zionism. And I think people need to see this. The DSA organization had a pretty firm position when it came to Israel and BDS. It supports BDS, according to the handbook, supported BDS. At least this goes back to 2018 when AOC and the squad members were originally running at that point in time. Supports BDS, does not support Israel's occupation, etc. You get the point. And yet, when they took this poll, DSA officially votes to approve R22 for a fighting anti-Zionist DSA. But look at the votes. In DSA, this is alarming. 675 people voted yes. 524 people voted no. 524 people in DSA voted against fighting the Zionism, and 30 abstained. Now look at the pie chart. This is a problem. And for people who feel maybe I'm being too harsh, considering what DSA's policy is about this particular issue, I don't know who those 524 people are, but this should have been 100% in favor of fighting against Zionism. And people are calling it out. This is why I don't like, and people ask me, join this organization, join them. This is why I don't like doing that. This is infiltration. That is what this is. It's not even like 20 people, 524. That's infiltration. Now you'll see here there was another one. This is interesting. Sad but not too surprised by DSA voting down support for one Palestinian state. It drew opposition from the right, who don't want to hold our electeds to that stance, and from the campus left, who don't want to commit to that state being secular or democratic. Here's another one, folks. DSA for a one Palestinian state. 330 people voted yes. 752 members voted against a one Palestinian state. For those who are not aware, that would be a secular state with equal rights. The majority of DSA members voted against that. What the hell is going on? That's infiltration at its sharpest. And even if it wasn't a part, if it wasn't a part of the handbook, then I could say, well, it's not policy, but it's there. And it's been there. So DSA has been infiltrated. And I think it's been there for a long time. And we'll go back to one of the more popular feminists to show you how long I think that infiltration may have been there. Because on that thumbnail, you saw AOC and Gloria Steinem. Let's start with Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem, popular feminist, I have discussed her style of feminism on the show before, and I explained to people that the Gloria Steinem style of feminism is not what you should strive towards. And you're going to see why in just a second. Now, apparently, somehow this flew over my head, but at some point or another, DSA decided to make Gloria Steinem an honorary chair of DSA. And in 2016, this should have been big, I think, alarm bells about the organization, okay? Gloria Steinem, in 2016, they had to put out a statement about it because of what she did. February 10, 2016, Gloria Steinem, who supports former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination, recently made controversial statements or misstatements in which she suggested that young women who support Bernie Sanders are doing so not out of well-considered political judgment, but because they are thinking, where are the boys? The boys are with Bernie. Here is an honorary chair of DSA, Miss Gloria Steinem, buying into the Bernie bro narrative. Knowing there were many women who supported Bernie Sanders, and Gloria Steinem bought into the DNC corporate talking points that if you didn't support Hillary Clinton, it was sexist. That's who was an honorary chair of the DSA. This is some of the infiltration. It goes on to say here, Steinem serves as one of 8 honorary chairs of Democratic Socialists of America, along with Cornel West, Barbara Enright, Francis Fox Piven, and others. Based on her work for DSA in the 1980s and 90s in one of its predecessor organization, DSA Organizing Committee. While we appreciate Steinem's pioneering work in the feminist movement and view her as a major figure in the history of feminism, we were very disappointed by her disparaging comments about female Bernie supporters, many of whom are active DSA members. Her views do not reflect those of DSA leadership. Where have we heard this before? What about the times when DSA put out these statements against AOC choosing to vote against the railroad workers to strike, AOC voting to present on the Iron Dome, and then more recently, they put out a statement about AOC choosing to vote against stopping funding for the Iron Dome. They've been doing this. And this is why I say, these organizations, fam, they get infiltrated. The National Political Committee of the Democratic Socialists of America views Steinem remarks as demeaning towards many dedicated female activists who are active in the Sanders campaign because they recognize that Senator Sanders' political program supports feminist and democratic aims more so than the platform of Hillary Clinton. Okay. And that's just one thing. And it was just one thing, you could just kind of just shrug it off. But why did they even make Gloria Steinem an honorary chair of DSA when Gloria Steinem had direct ties to the CIA? Gloria Steinem was a spy. Why would you make a spy an honorary chair of your organization, which is supposed to be fighting back against corporatism and corruption? We've shown this before, but if you have not seen this, and I've talked about this before about Gloria Steinem and how she was incredibly problematic, and also how she hurt the civil rights movement for Black Americans in this country. What is often missed or mischaracterized, however, is the work that she did as a CIA agent. Gloria Steinem was a spook. CIA agents are tight-lipped, but Steinem spoke openly about her relationship to the agency in the 1950s and the 60s after a magazine revealed her employment by a CIA front organization, the Independent Research Service. While popularity pillared because of her paymaster, Steinem defended the CIA relationship, saying, "In my experience, the agency was completely different from its image. It was liberal, nonviolent, and honorable." Yeah, I mean, you think she's going to say, "Oh my God, it was evil, awful." Oh no. This is the woman that they made as honorary chair of DSA. This wasn't private. This was public information, even at that time. So let's make a CIA spy an honorary chair of our organization that's going to fight back against corruption and power. Does that not sound weird to you? If the spy part doesn't get you, you need to think about what else Gloria Steinem did and what DSA policies mean. The Nation called this out. 2024, nationalism distorts feminism in Israel just as it did in the United States. So Gloria Steinem, let's fast forward here, because her name, she comes up quite a bit. I just want to make sure I don't skip that part. This part right here. In the end, Israeli women will be harmed by this too, though perhaps not during the campaign, but after it's over. The proof of this lies in the U.S. experience in the war on terror, which similarly appropriated feminist lingo, ideas, and agenda to paper over invasions and occupations. Check this out. After September 11, 2001, femonationalism seized. Where am I? Okay, sorry. After September 2001, September 11, femonationalism seized the United States. When First Lady Laura Bush said that America was invading Afghanistan to liberate Afghan women from the Taliban, few questioned her. The Feminist Majority Foundation, one of the largest women's organizations in the U.S., attended the State Department ceremony in which the invasion was announced. Gloria Steinem, who had famously handcuffed herself to a chair to protest the Vietnam War, made statements in favor of democracy promotion. Many white feminists lined up to cheer the killing of people who had nothing to do with September 11. But this is who they made the honorary chair of DSA. She supported the war. And this is where the feminism part, this is where people get twisted. She supported the war under the guise of feminism. She either fell for, or maybe I would say she was smart enough not to fall for, but promoted the lie that we would save the women and the children. You can't make these things up. You have to look into this information, ladies and gents. And then something more recently when it comes to Gloria Steinem. This was just in 2023. Gloria Steinem also fell for the Hamas sexual assault story. She was one of the people. Women rights leaders urge full investigation and justice for Israeli sexual assault victims and survivors. So peep this, fam. A letter signed by Miss founding editors Gloria Steinem and Letty Porgabin, Kathy Hochul, the list goes on, etc., Ashley Judd, yada, 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 goes on to say, they urge the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, to investigate the sexual torture and other war crimes perpetuated on October 7th at the hands of the terrorist group Hamas. Why weren't more people talking about this? Gloria Steinem was promoting the sexual assault lie about Hamas, and doing so under the guise of feminism. Well, it's about women, so you better investigate it. Did Gloria Steinem call for an investigation towards the Palestinian women who have been brutally sexually assaulted and have evidence? Did she call for an investigation into that? Did Gloria Steinem call for an investigation into the gentleman on the footage that we've seen on social media that was sexually assaulted by multiple IDF members? Did she call for an investigation into that? Where does Gloria Steinem stand on Israel? And I swear to you, all of this is connected. While she has been one to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, especially after he barred people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar from coming to Israel, how does she feel about Zionism, though? How does Gloria Steinem feel about Zionism? Did you know? And let's go through this, because see, I don't know if everybody knows this. It's all coming out today. In 1975, there was a resolution by the United Nations. It was called the United Nations Zionism is Racism Resolution of November 10th of 1975. This resolution says 1975, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution that denounced Zionism as a form of racism. It was the most important victory to date for the PLO and its Soviet bloc, Arab, and third world state supporters. The vote was 72 in favor, 35% opposed, and 32 abstained. West Germany voted against it. Resolution 3379 on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination was the most famous of the many defeats that Israel endured at the UN in these decades. How many people knew about this, right? Okay, let's see the position that she had about that. Now, as I said before, she has spoken out against Netanyahu, especially when he barred Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. But if you go on here, let me scroll down, make sure we're on the right one. Yeah, she spoke out against that. I think I'm on the wrong one. Here we are. But when it came to that UN resolution, there were 60 prominent women who condemned the UN anti-Zionist resolution. There were 60. Check this out. 60 prominent women today sent a telegram to UN Secretary General Kurtz and goes on to say, condemning the anti-Zionist resolution. Listen to what this says. As women committed to the worldwide struggle for human rights and equality, we are appalled at the racist label applied solely to that national self-determination movement of the Jewish people. We decry this implicit denial of Israeli statehood and this incitement to worldwide anti-Semitism. The resolution, they continued, is the first and only time an authentic movement for national and ethnic survival would be condemned as racist. Let's go on to see who signed this, shall we? You know who supported this? And the crazy part about here too, even the NAACP backed this at that point in time, which is crazy. Let me make sure I get to the part here. I might have passed it. Did I pass it? Sorry. There's a lot of people mentioned. Here we go. So look who supported this. Number one, Althea T.L. Simmons, National Director of Educational Programs, NAACP. Even the NAACP didn't want to call Zionism racist. Do you guys see how all of these organizations are corrupt? They're all complicit. The NAACP, which was supposedly fighting for Black people during the civil rights movement, would not call Zionism racist. And guess who else wouldn't call it that? Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem had a problem with calling Zionism racism. So when we go back to that vote that took place with the DSA about pushing back against Zionism, these people, this organization has been greatly infiltrated. You had someone who was an honorary chair who didn't think that Zionism was racism. That's how you get, let's come back here. That's how you get 524 people that say no. That's how you get 752 people that say no to a one Palestinian state. Now is not the time to fall asleep. Now is not that time. Now is the time for people to really wake up. So when we get to the vote that just happened with AOC, where she did not vote for that bill, obviously one, because it was MTG's bill, but also because she said, well, the Iron Dome has defensive capacities. Remember this whole spill that we went through? So AOC still wanted Israel to be able to defend itself. What I'm trying to tell you is this: the direct connection is that maybe DSA started one way and maybe that's what they wanted to do, but they have allowed Zionists to infiltrate the organization. When you have an honorary chair who was a popular feminist who refused to call Zionism racism, when you have AOC who voted in such a way, this wasn't the first time, multiple times, to give pass to the Iron Dome, that is how you get the votes that they just got. And what that tells you, and this I have to say, what that tells you is that there's infiltration everywhere, but that also explains why they are rather timid with the Israel thing as it is today. So DSA has been infiltrated. That infiltrating started long ago. Anytime you were willing to make a spy an honorary chair. And that's how you get here. And that's unfortunate. It's sad. I remember when DSA first, became big, and it seemed like they were on the right track, at least at that point, and the policies that they were pushing, etc. But when people tell you something is not right in the water, believe something is not right in the water. So don't take a nap. Don't go back to sleep. Turn down for what? A lot of these organizations are being exposed, and people are starting to see it for what it really is. Now, if you're a member of DSA, I'm not here calling you a Zionist. What I am saying is that organization, considering its position on Israel, in my opinion, should not have Zionists a part of the organization, or people that believe that it's okay to be Zionist. That's a problem. And this is after the genocide has started. This vote took place recently. This vote wasn't 2016. This vote took place recently. So if Zionists have infiltrated DSA, what else have they infiltrated? Think about it. Let's go to the comments, ladies and gents. Hey. Thank you, Roger. 2 people warned us. 1, Trotsky guy Sab had on from WSW, who said they were feds from its inception. Oh, that's right. That's right. He did say that. 2, Lucy, who warned y'all on the Sabby and JB show last month. Thank you, Flower Bro. In an interview with New York Times, Steinem admitted she worked for the CIA. Steinem also said, in my experience, the agency was completely different from its image. It was liberal, nonviolent, and honorable. This is true. Like I said, it's not even private. DSA should have known that. Thank you, Chris. DSA charges dues at varying amounts, but where does their money go? Mutual aid funds? Heck, China, CBC earmarked flood relief, raising $4.5 million. I don't know where the money goes. I'm not a member. I don't sign up for these dues. Like, I don't like when people like, your dues are going to be, and I'm out. Janine said, yes, Sabby, we all knew about these folks. DSOC, early iteration of DSA, refused to engage in the anti-Vietnam War movement. They red baited us from the sidelines. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Roger. Sorry. So when us lefties talk about, yay, China, understand the trade-off, we had cities like LA, Pittsburgh, and others filled with smog because of our industrial policy. Since the outsourcing, those cities have all cleared up. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Okay, folks. Oh, it's been a while since I did a deep dive. So I'm like, let's do the damn thing. Let's go. Let's go. We have another interesting story here, folks. I think we're going to start with this one. If you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. We got to talk about what's happening with the Black church. And if you're not religious, this may be informative to you, even if it's not your thing. But I think it does show a change of the times. So there's an article that was published recently from the Griot, and they're talking about the decline of the Black church. Now, for those who are not aware, when we say the Black church, we're not just talking about just one particular Black church. We mean it like as a community, like the Black church, like all the Black churches together, right? Membership has declined. Attendance has declined. What could be the reason? With this particular church that is in Brooklyn, this is one of the ones that's mentioned. It says Brooklyn's Black church choirs persist amid attendance decline and gentrification. Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Okay, here we go. Many church choirs in the heart of Brooklyn keep singing despite boasting fewer singers than in the years past as neighborhoods face gentrification and organized religious affiliation decreases. In 1847, it was founded in 1847, Concord Baptist Church in Brooklyn's oldest historically Black congregation. At the time, a nearby neighborhood known as Weeksville, now considered part of Central Brooklyn, was the second largest free Black community in the United States before the Civil War. That's coming from Amanda Henderson, who collections historian at the Weeksville Heritage Center. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for everybody. Louise Nelson, a Brooklyn native and church historian of the Berean Baptist Church in Crown Heights, said music was the foundation of the early church, and that remains true for churches in the borough today. The songs uplifted us, kept us going, yada, yada. But according to Pew Research Center data, between 2019 and 2023, Black Protestant monthly church attendance fell from 61% to 46%. That's the largest decline among major U.S. religious groups. Of course, the pandemic accelerated this trend, and its impact is visible in thinning choir stands. So, yeah, when the pandemic happened, one of the first things people stopped doing was going to church, right? Because that is one of those crowded spaces where you're around more people. So that was something that did stop. Some churches were offering services like online, so you could attend virtually, etc. But here's the thing, folks. Okay, there's a couple of things going on here. Let's start with the first one, which is gentrification. These neighborhoods have changed. This is not the Brooklyn of the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, hell, even the 80s, even the 90s. People have been pushed out, or people have decided to move out. What do I mean by that? The Black population in New York City, and in particular, the Black American population in New York City, has continued to decline. Hell, when I was in undergrad, that was something I noticed. When I was in college, there were a lot of people from New York. There are a lot of people from New York and New Jersey. And I went to college at the University of South Carolina. There are a lot of you guys. And ultimately, what I noticed as well, Some of those people that came from New York and came from New Jersey, when they graduated college, instead of moving back home, they decided to stay down south and they got jobs there, whether it was in Charlotte, like North Carolina or Charleston, etc. They decided to stay there because the cost of living was cheaper. And they're like, well, hell, I can work here a couple of years and then save up and buy a home. There's that. Then there is people being pushed out, right? So Brooklyn is very gentrified now. It didn't look like that when I lived there, but it's very gentrified now. Williamsburg has changed. I see there's gentrification happening in Flatbush, over in that area. Like there's a lot of gentrification. So when that happens, the rent increases and everything else goes up too. The moment you see a Whole Foods or a juice bar, run. I say this jokingly, but it's true. You know what's coming. You know what's coming. So people who grew up in those neighborhoods can't afford to live there anymore. So they're either priced out because the landlords increase the rent because, hey, we got the tech people moving in and they're going to pay us $3,000 a month. So you got to go. That's one of the ways they're pushed out. Or they're pushed out because they just can't afford anything else in the neighborhood anymore. The local grocery store is gone. Now, as if you want to buy groceries, you got to go to Whole Foods. Not everybody can afford to shop at Whole Foods. The point being is this: the Black population in New York City has continued to decline. Now, it's not unique to New York City, but it's been happening. That's part of this. And then we'll get to the part about younger Black people, because there's something here about religion altogether. It's not just the gentrification. They go on to say here, according to the research published, it says that Black Protestants attended church on Zoom more than other denominations during the pandemic, and they have been the slowest to return to in-person worship. The internet has taken over and streaming has taken over. People don't go to the building as much as they are streaming it. Goes on to say here that when in-person services first resumed, it took a long time for the choir to rebuild because many members were still staying home for health reasons. Recently, though, he's seen more people showing up. Goes on to say here, it says a typical service attracts approximately 150 people and roughly 100 virtually. Over time, Berene's choirs have consolidated into a single mass choir with approximately 20 singers. So let's talk about this as well. You know, I grew up in the church. I've talked about that before on this show. And it was very different when I was growing up. Sunday was packed. And if you were raised in a family like mine, you probably had to go to Bible study on Wednesday too. But Sunday was packed and there were two services. There was the early morning service and then there was the kind of mid-morning service that ended was supposed to end at lunchtime, but it didn't. It was supposed to end at lunchtime, but it didn't. Those services were long and you could feel your tummy like growling during the service. And all I could think about is when the pastor would say, look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, you all right. You all right. I would just think to myself, I wanted to look to my neighbor and say, neighbor, I am hungry. Those were long services, right? But things have changed. You know, that was a long time ago. And I remember there were choir competitions, like different churches would come together. There were church conventions and you would have this choir, that choir, and they would have like a choir, like the sister act, it was real. That was like a real thing. That is not the case so much anymore, particularly here in the Brooklyn area there. The South is more so the Bible Belt. So in the South, there's churches everywhere, right? But part of the reason why they're seeing that decline is also because of younger people. Younger people, younger Black people in particular, are less likely to be religious. They're less likely to attend church service every Sunday. Times have greatly changed, right? they're also less likely to buy into the two-party system. And I'm going to show you a connection with that as well. Younger people, in particular, younger Black people, tend to be a little bit more resourceful. We're talking about millennials, Gen Z, the internet age. Like, I'm a millennial. So we had the internet. I had a little bit later, but we had the internet. Gen Z grew up with internet like from birth, basically. They are more likely to seek out information for themselves. They are more likely to say, oh, well, the pastor said this in church. Let me look into this. They're more resourceful. I noticed this when I advised the students at the university. They were like this too. I really didn't have to guide them as much as you would think because they're so resourceful. They grew up with the internet, with social media. They know how to get around. They know how to find places, right? They also know how to find truth. And what some of the younger people have been finding is that some of the things that the pastors have been preaching in these churches doesn't really match what they've been finding through their own research. Some of the sermons are outdated. If you are one of these churches and you are still preaching this message of Israel, probably not a good time for you right now. And as we see, younger people are more likely to reject what Israel is doing. People are starting to sit back and put two and two together. I was talking to my sister. My sister's younger than me. I was talking to my sister about this earlier today. My sister also said, why do I need to be a part of a religion that was brought on by colonizers? Whoa. I was like, whoa, they are younger, but they are very resourceful. They have done their homework. When I was a kid, we didn't have social media, right? Those things came later. So they're just not willing to put up with, I guess, like some of the things that my generation put up with. And you'll see that here in this particular study. They talked about this in 2022. A study shows that Black Americans are less connected to the Black church. Young Black Americans. This is the picture that I had of the guy earlier. Those days are gone. Like, you don't see those kind of days anymore. Like, I remember my grandma was on the choir. They all had those robes, like the robes that you see here in the picture. And it was a big, like a big to-do. But for younger Black people, this is not necessarily the case. It says here that throughout history, the Black church has been so much more than just a place of worship. For centuries, it has been a source of inspiration, hope, especially during the vile days of American slavery. But that sentiment doesn't seem to connect with younger Black Americans as it did with their elders. In another Pew Research study, young Black adults are less religious and less engaged in Black churches than older generations. Black millennials and Zoomers, Gen Z, pray less, are less likely to have grown up in a Black church, and are less likely to say religion plays an important role in their lives. They also attend fewer religious services, and those who do are less likely to go to a predominantly Black church. This is very interesting. It goes on to say here, 63% of Black Americans who participated in the study said that if they were looking for a new congregation, it was not too important or not at all important for them to find a congregation where most other attendees shared their race. This is interesting. Finding a congregation that is welcoming and that offers inspiring sermons was deemed a higher priority. They don't want to hear gloom and doom and you're going to hell. They don't want to hear that. They want to be able to walk into a place where they will be accepted as they are. They got enough going on out here in these streets. They don't want to hear that. And a lot of us grew up with that. If you do this, you're going to hell. If you do that, you're going to, you know what I mean? Have people afraid to breathe. But they're not willing to put up with that. We also see the study also found that 3/4 of Black adults surveyed said that Black churches have played at least some role in helping Black people move towards equality, including 3 in 10 who say Black churches have done a great deal. So there isn't one main reason why younger Black Americans are skipping out on some places of worship, but times are different. And what the church meant for Black people 100 years ago doesn't mean the same thing anymore. Yeah. Also, churches used to be more involved in the community. You know, nowadays you look around and you got these millionaire pastors who have these mega churches, Cleflo Dollar, TD Jakes. You know, you see that. Joel Osteen, you ain't Black, but you up there too. So anytime we look around, we see like you got a private jet. That's the image that is more represented now. The other one here, Veronica, yes, you brought this up as well. Misogyny is why many young Black women are skipping church. That's another reason. That's another reason where some, especially younger Black women, don't want to be told that you got to listen. I went to a Baptist church. I went to a Methodist church. I went to a Pentecostal church. At the Pentecostal church, and I told you guys about this briefly, I think on Call-In before. At the Pentecostal church, we weren't allowed to wear pants. We couldn't have, jewelry. We weren't supposed to cut our hair. We couldn't wear makeup. But the guys didn't have those. The guys could wear what they wanted. It was just, it seemed like a lot of the restrictions were on the women. So a lot of people today, the younger people, they not willing to deal with that. There's like, yeah, no, I'm good. So that's a big part of it as well. And then there's the politics of it all. And this is what I think people really need to see. Let me go ahead and put this up here. Has the Black church lost credibility by becoming Democratic Party surrogates? Black preachers told their members to support abortion. He says sex changes, drag queen story time, boys entering girl sports, and to vote like Black women. How much blame does the Black church hold for Kamala Harris's poor election results? Now, for me, I'm not looking at Black teachers told their members to support blah, 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 blah. Because that actually has not been what I saw in the Black church. But what I will say, we played this video, is the way that the Black church kind of, sucked up to the politicians and said, support this person. The fact that Joe Biden could just enter a Black church, and not have to apologize for any of the things he said about Black people. Same goes for Donald Trump when he walked up into the Black church. This whole idea that the Black church tells you this is who you're supposed to vote for, so you better vote for them. Why? And some of the younger people ain't really feeling that. As you'll see in this previous presidential election in 2024, younger Black people didn't come out like they did in 2020. What does that say? So this is another one, and people need to ask, when you see the politicians walk into the Black church and like, hey, they kind of knew this is the place that we're supposed to go to get your vote. But now that the younger Black peeps are not there as much like it was back in my day, I said back in my day, when I was like growing up, they still miss out on the Black youth vote. They still trying to cozy up to, and no offense anybody here, but they still trying to cozy up to the ladies in the church hats, like the woman on this screen. They still trying to cozy up to them, the older generation of Black voters. And there's a whole generation of Black potential voters that they completely overlook. This is the buffoonery, some of the buffoonery that the Black church has allowed us to deal with.
Weeping may endure
Why? Why did we put up with this? So you see, this is what I'm saying. This is where some of this comes from. He don't know why he there. People just know he there. Let me just show up. I don't really have to do anything for the Black community, but let me just show up at the church where a lot of the Black people are, and everything will just be pushed forward. Why did this happen? Why was this allowed to happen?
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning.
I have to mute this part because of the music. And so that's how he's able to slide right in there and win, right? Why? Why does this happen? And you got Jamal Bryant and all this. I don't have to do anything for the Black community. All I have to do is show up. That's it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys, but things are changing. This is a different generation. When I say turn down for what, again, people, you got to pay attention to the younger people. You got to pay attention to the Gen Z group. You know, a lot of times I think people wash their hands of them. Listen, I'm a millennial. And when I was growing up, they said that my generation was doomed. That's what they told us. When I was in high school, they told us that. They said, yeah, you guys are going nowhere. Best bet you have is to go to college so you have some hope of being successful. Otherwise, other than you're going nowhere. That's what they told us. So pay attention to the young people and reach out to them and see what's up. But community is changing. And where it was once a place where people would organize and gather together at the Black church as one of the best examples, those things are changing. Got to talk to the kids, man. You got to pay attention and ask people how they're feeling, what's going on and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I think that outdated rhetoric that is being preached at some of these churches, the younger people, they're not going to be for that, man. They're not going to be for that. Let's get to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. All right. Thank you for the super chat focus. Of course, the NAACP excuses Zionism. Ask yourself why the annual award they give out is called the Spingarn Medal after Joel Spingarn. Shout out to TJ White, who's been a member for 9 months. And that's why I attend Bedside Baptist, the never-ending sermon. Thank you, Courtney. Hypocrisy ran, ignored church hurt, turn A of us off church. Oh, hypocrisy ran, ignored church hurt, turned a lot of us off church. Thanks, Courtney. I'm typing and driving, y'all. My bad. LOL. Skylar said, hell, my gay roommate went to an anti-gay church where the pastor, Eddie Long, was outed as having an affair with 18 and 18-year-old young men in his congregation. Oh, I remember that story. It was all over Atlanta news for weeks. JB says, also, many of us are LGBTQ and we're told we aren't accepted for who we are, so we left. That part too. Let's get the Rumble rant and then we'll keep it moving. Hey. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Goo. Evangelical churches are saying they are seeing a huge decrease of followers due to church support of genocide. Yep. And thank you, Roger. For decades, the DSA and its predecessors and socialist leaders like Michael Harrington, Bayard Rustin, championed the Jewish state and defended them on campus. During 1967 Six-Day War and later during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, leaders in America's democratic socialist movement were staunch allies of Israel. These leaders, notably Michael Harrington, the most prominent theorist and spokesperson of the democratic socialist movement during the 1960s and 1970s, and Bayard Rustin, the renowned civil rights leader and national co-chair of the Socialist Party of America, spoke eloquently of Israel as a democracy surrounded by hostile autocratic governments and of the history of Jewish people and the imperative of a Jewish state. The basic fact Harrington wrote in 1975 is that Zionism which I take to mean the philosophy of support for and identification with a Jewish homeland in Israel, is the national liberation movement of a Jewish people asserting their right to self-determination. Now, regarding church, the Zoomers and millennials see the BS going on with the church of pimps in the pulpit. Well said there, Roger. Can we go to part 3 for Type VNC? Thank you very much. Thank you, Better You. I think a lot of folks are also dealing with church hurt and perceptions of corruption, both real and imagined. I feel ethics play just as big of a role. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, like, look, man, like we've been through it. We have been through it. Okay, folks, we are moving on to the next story here, which is our final story of the night. You know, if you got something you can drink at this point, you might want to for this one. If you have something that you can sip on, because this is really interesting and it's also cringe. You know, Mike Huckabee has to be one of the most awful, disgusting politicians, hell, people out there. He has absolutely no consideration, no love for the Palestinian people. He's supposed to be a Christian, but he has said some very vile things about them. Recently, he was on Piers Morgan's show, and he said something that really is sending, I guess, shockwaves through social media. Let's go ahead and get into this here.
What do you say to those who believe that Netanyahu decided to go to war to destroy the people of Israel, to sacrifice hostages, soldiers, and the values of the country of Israel?
I think it's ludicrous. I've been with the prime minister almost as much as I have been with my own wife since I have arrived here as ambassador. And anyone who would say that the prime minister wants this war to continue, that he doesn't care what happens, I tell you it's nonsense. Most people know that his perhaps closest aide, Ron Dermer, his Minister of Strategic Affairs, they know him. He was the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. What they may not know is he has 2 sons fighting in Gaza right now.
So first of all, let's pause here. Why have you spent as much time with Benjamin Netanyahu as you have with your own wife? Anybody? Don't you guys find that troubling? You know, Mike Huckabee is a Christian Zionist. He is one of the ones that believes that Israel is owed all the land. He doesn't care if the Palestinian people are killed, if that's the method that Israel takes so that they can get it. Mike Huckabee, like many, do not really understand the Bible, the biblical text. As I've said before, Israel, as it's mentioned in the Bible, is not a physical place. It does not represent the Israel of today. This is something that has been brainwashed on a lot of Christians, particularly in this country, by Zionists. That's really where a lot of this came from. Much time with Netanyahu as his wife.
They may not know is that the current ambassador of Israel to the United States, Ambassador Leiter, a wonderful human being and an incredible diplomat and statesman. One of his sons was killed in Gaza. There are many members of the senior cabinet of the prime minister who are right now in Gaza in combat. And for anyone to suggest that the prime minister is enjoying this or indifferent to it, or that he's immune to the suffering. Over 700 IDF soldiers have died in Gaza trying to avenge what happened on October 7th.
Always goes back to October 7th, right? Over 700. He wants you to feel that 700 is higher than over hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza. That's what he wants you to feel.
And I haven't been anywhere in this country where I didn't run into someone who had a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, a brother, sister, father, mother, who was not directly impacted either in death or with a severe injury. I mean, it's just something every day I see it. And every week I'm talking to hostage families, not only those from the United States. We still have 2 American hostages deceased, but their families want the remains back so they can give them a proper burial. Hamas won't let even the deceased hostages out. But I just have to strongly disagree and push back on the notion, and I know that's not your position, you're not stating it, but yes, I hear it here. I hear it many places. I can tell you that based on not only the conversations I have, but the reality of the number of people at the most senior levels of the Israeli government whose own children are dodging bullets in Gaza, it's nonsense to say that they want the war to go on and that they don't care.
They don't care. First of all, Netanyahu's son is not over there fighting in Gaza. His son lives in Miami. So there's that. He may be referring to other cabinet members, but number one, they know they really do not care. This has been explained multiple times. If it means that they have to sacrifice some of their own people in order to accomplish their Zionist mission, they are going to do that. That is how this works. So Mike Huckabee is there to be a representative, an American representative for Israel, to get people back on board with supporting Israel. That is why he is on Piers Morgan's show. He is there to continue to represent and support the Zionist narrative. And also, the other thing that we need to bring up is you also have Trump supporters who are speaking out against this now. So his job is to go in there and let's see if I can make sure that we get, the right back where it's supposed to be and convince them that what is happening is okay. So he goes on to Piers Morgan's show to try to downplay what is happening in Gaza, to try to make it seem like the civilian casualty there is less than it actually is, and to convince his audience that the casualty of Israelis is greater. Like, I can't even make this up, guys. We have to go to another part here. Like, this guy's such a freaking liar, man. Such a liar. Another piece here.
But you say this just a few hours after the IDF has killed 5 journalists from Al Jazeera, amongst 7 people who were killed in a direct and targeted strike in Gaza City. Al Jazeera called it a targeted assassination and a blatant and premeditated attack on press freedom. Now, the IDF immediately put out a statement saying that 28-year-old correspondent Anas al-Sharif, who had become extremely well known in Gaza for his broadcasting during the war, they said that he served as the head of a terrorist cell in Hamas and produced documents including personal rosters, lists of terrorist training courses, phone directories, and salary documents that they said proved he belonged to Hamas. But since then, a number of journalists, including many from the BBC, have said that this evidence, to their eyes, very experienced war correspondents, is not convincing. And the reason this matters so much is that if the IDF has deliberately targeted a group of journalists in Gaza City, and it turns out that that man, al-Sharif, was not a Hamas terrorist, then that would constitute a war crime.
First, we have to pause before he responds. Pierce is not being genuine here either. This whole that would constitute a war crime. He says it as though Israel hasn't been committing war crimes this whole time, right? Pierce don't give a damn, right? At this point, it is now accepted by the mainstream to criticize what Israel is doing. But I want to remind everybody, after October 7th, it was not accepted, right? And many of us were smeared, were heavily attacked for calling it what it really was. So this whole idea of that would be a war crime, wouldn't it? As if this is the first time that's been an issue with Israel. Now listen to the lies that Mike Huckabee pulls out of his ass.
I also would point, there are photos where this alleged journalist is hugging the head of Hamas and smiling and yucking it up for the cameras. There is evidence that indicates that he was an asset for Hamas. And if it's proven that he isn't, then that's a different calculation. But
first of all, that doesn't make any sense. If you say there's evidence that he was an asset for Hamas, and you say if it's proven that he wasn't, but you already said that there's evidence that he was. So why would it be proven that he wasn't? Two, just because you took a picture with someone doesn't mean that you were also Hamas or you were working with Hamas. You guys take pictures with people. I've taken pictures with people. That doesn't mean we're working together. And three, as I've said before, when we talk about what international law says that occupied people have a right to resist by force if necessary. This is part of the reason why Israel continues to say that Gaza is not occupied. This is why they continue to say that, because they know what the law says, but they are occupied. Another thing I want to bring up, a fence doesn't mean it's a border. So they enclose the space of Gaza and they just put up this fence and go, okay, this is a border. You can't cross that fence. Says who? Where does the law say that? That's what Israel did. Imagine if someone just showed up to your town or your city and all of a sudden they say, this neighborhood is no longer going to be a part of the city. We're just going to put a fence around this little block here. This is what Israel has done. So he's going to continue to lie because he has to protect Israel, because that's what Mike Huckabee does. Don't forget, he's the ambassador, but he had these cringe, disgusting views of the Palestinian people prior to October 7th.
Now the evidence points to the fact that he was. And why would someone pose as a journalist? I mean, I know why they would do it, but I think that's incredibly despicable if somebody is pretending to be just reporting the news, but is actually being a participant in the outcome. It's like if a referee at an American football game, instead of wearing the striped jersey of the referee, decides to put on a team jersey and actually root for one team over the other and aid and abet one team over the other. But the big difference is that in football, it's just a game, really doesn't matter. This matters. People are dying there every day. And anyone who helps Hamas, who is sympathetic to them, who aids and abets them, I can understand they would be a target.
This is something I want to point out. What would Mike Huckabee have said for those that had slave revolts, for people that, you know, like Nat Turner? What would he have said? What would he have said when we would look at Haiti, like even the Haitian slave rebellion? What does Mike Huckabee, how does he feel about people who were slaves that decided to revolt against their oppressors? And I think this is the question that needs to be thrown their way, right? Because this is the gotcha moment. And it's not to say the Palestinians are slaves, but they are occupied. They can't leave. They are fenced in. So what would they say? This is how you, and especially for Black people, for those who are Black Republicans, you need to ask that question. Ask them that question. I would love to see their response. I would love to see what they have to say there. Now, the craziest part that he said here is when he talked about their weight. And this is supposed to be a Christian, right?
But I think when you talk to the GHF people, the ones who have been out there risking their lives to get food to people, they're going to give you a very different perspective. I was there. I watched what they did. I watched the way in which they did it. And I think it is a much better process, and it is work. People are not stealing those boxes of food that are designed to give a family of 5 food for 8 to 10 days. Over 115 million meals have already been served. And
he talked to the people that are killing the Palestinians. He talked to those people. He didn't talk to Palestinians in Gaza. He talked to the Israelis. Do you think Mike Huckabee and all these other people, oh, I've spoken to all these, you think they would go talk to the people, the Palestinians in Gaza? Hell no. They're talking to people on the Israeli side. So because Israel says it, it has to be true according to Mike Huckabee. This is where we're at now, ladies and gentlemen. That's like you're going and asking someone who, you have a victim and you have someone who was the perpetrator. That's like going to the perpetrator and asking them, did you do this? And the perpetrator says no. And you say, oh, okay, well, then it didn't happen then. But you don't go talk to the victim. You don't go talk to the person that has been victimized and ask them for their side of the story. That's what Mike Huckabee is doing. And I said this before. He believes this and supports this because he believes that He uses his religion as an excuse that Israel is owed the land, that it belongs to them. We are talking about, as I said before, these are settlers, most of them, who have gone in and they stole that land. A lot of them are Europeans cosplaying. That's really what this is about, folks. And Mike Huckabee and his whack-ass daughter, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, all of these folks, they have been brainwashed by Zionism. And they are using their religion and their faith as a reason to be the way that they are. It's sick. It's really disgusting. At some point, you literally have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, is this really okay?
We're getting ready to scale up the operation to put more feeding sites. This is while the UN's process had 900 trucks parked in the sunshine with food rotting, and the pallets of food, thousands of pallets of food, enough for a year or more of food, sat there in the sun because the UN didn't feel good about the manner in which it was going to be delivered and taken into the country. When their own numbers indicate that 88% of what they take in gets stolen, I wouldn't be critical of the GHF.
First of all, that has already been debunked multiple times. There was no evidence that said that Hamas was stealing the food. That has been debunked so many times, and he continues to repeat this lie. These people are sick.
In fact, I think people ought to be grateful that they are getting the food to the people. And I'll say again, when I was at those feeding sites and when I talked to Gazans, I did not hear anything other than, we love America, we're glad you've done this, and this is the first time we're getting food that we didn't have to pay for.
That's a damn lie. Mike Huckabee is lying. Like, it's just, these people, I swear to God, it's like they have no conscience. You guys really believe that? Do you really believe the Gazan people told this to Mike Huckabee? Because it's not like there's a news camera in their face asking for their side of the story. Israel doesn't even allow Western journalists to go in. There's a reason for that. They don't want you to talk to them. They don't want you to hear what they have to say. When you have doctors that have gone on to multiple podcasts to tell you what they are seeing in Gaza, are the doctors lying too, including the American doctors? We see the videos with our own eyes. We see Israeli settlers stealing the food off the trucks. It's not Hamas taking that food. It's settlers taking the food. Here comes the crazier part.
Why does Hamas hate GHF? One of the things they demanded in one of the negotiations just 2.5 weeks ago was that GHF had to be shut down. Why would Hamas want to shut it down? I'll tell you why. Because GHF method of getting food has really hurt their capacity to control the food market, and it's costing them money. Otherwise, they would say, sure, go ahead and bring the food in. All we care about is people getting to eat. But they don't care about people getting to eat. They care that they eat. And if you look at the people from Hamas, when they get photographed, they're well fed. None of them are hungry. I guarantee you, look at their faces, look at their bodies. And instead of food, they could use some Ozempic. But yeah, there's some real deprivation in that country, but it's not because GHF is killing people. What the people told me, it was Hamas that was shooting the folks coming to get the food, not only at the GHF sites, if they could get to them, but also at the UN sites.
That is not what the video footage shows. We have discussed this multiple times on this show. The video footage is there for you on social media if you care to see it yourself. But he just sat there and basically called the Palestinian people fat. That's what he meant when he said they need some Ozempic. That's a weight loss drug. This guy is disgusting. I said it on Twitter earlier. I said Mike Huckabee is trash. Because he wants us to believe that the images that we're seeing of people being shot. No, I've seen video footage of the IDF shooting Palestinians as they go to get food. I've seen video footage of Palestinian children where it's to the point where you can only see their bones. I saw a baby like that. I saw kids like that. over and over again. And he's going to sit here and tell this lie and say, the nerve of this guy, that is so disgusting and so gross to say that they need some Ozempic. This is where we're at now, folks. So he comes on to Piers Morgan to tell this lie. And Piers didn't give much pushback, to be honest with you. What he does do is he brings on Medi Hasan to do the pushback for him, basically, to debunk some of the things that he said here. Don't forget this. It's a killing field. IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. That came directly from statements from IDF officers and soldiers. But here is, of course, Mike Huckabee telling you that it was Hamas that was doing that. Even though there's video footage that there is not. Max Blumenthal had a joke. I thought this was pretty funny. U.S. Gaza Holocaust Ambassador Mike Huckabee is projecting this is him and his family before they all went on Ozempic. Damn. That was brutal. That was brutal, Max. That was brutal. But Medi Hasan did come in to debunk what Mike Huckabee said. Listen to this.
Well, he said a lot. I think he spoke to him for nearly an hour. A lot of things that weren't true. One thing that stood out to me was when he said he spent as much time with Netanyahu as he spent with his own wife, which explains probably a great deal why the Trump administration is so pro-Netanyahu and all in on everything Netanyahu's doing. One name you and him didn't really mention was Donald Trump. Trump has given Netanyahu, as we know, the green light to do the ethnic cleansing, to do the starvation, to do the killing. He recently said it's up to Israel to do whatever they want. But Mike Huckabee is a man who, just for your viewers watching some context, this is a man who said there's no such thing as a Palestinian. Says there's no such thing as the West Bank, says there's no such thing as a settlement, says there's no such thing as an occupation. He takes a very racist, dehumanizing view of Palestinians. He is a Christian nationalist, Christian Zionist who supports Israel for theological reasons. And in that interview with you, I just want to pick up a few things very quickly. The number of barefaced lies the ambassador told. He said multiple times Hamas is stealing the aid. As you pointed out, the New York Times spoke to multiple Israeli officials who say there is no evidence of systematic stealing of aid by Hamas. In fact, USAID, the US government's own aid department, did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The European Union did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The aid is being stolen. It's being stolen by gangs who are linked to Israel. So he's lying when he talks about Hamas stealing the aid. I was amazed to see him talk about beheaded babies and babies burned in ovens, which, as you know, Piers, because you got caught in that early on, was absolute bullshit put out by the Israelis. It's a complete lie. Not only did
Yeah, just to remind everybody, Piers Morgan was repeating that lie for quite some time. And he's still repeating that.
lie about babies being burned in ovens. An ambassador of the United States at this point, 22 months later, telling that debunked hoax. He even claimed that it was done on video, which is not true. Show us the video. It doesn't exist. He also lied about the Israelis giving warnings to people before they bomb them. Every human rights group in the world says that's absolute BS. The Baka Cafe in Gaza City was bombed just last month. 30 people killed. A seaside cafe where they're having a children's birthday party. A boxer was killed. A sports star was killed. Children were killed. No warning given. They dropped a 500-pound bomb on a crowded seaside cafe. And then, of course, he lied about Anas al-Sharif and his crew. He said that the evidence points to them being Hamas. As you pointed out, no one who's looked at any of the evidence provided by Israel says that's evidence of Hamas. All he had was that, he was spotted taking a picture with the leadership of Hamas. So if you stand next to an accused terrorist or someone on the American terrorist watch list, that makes you a target, because I would point out Mike Pompeo is in a picture standing next to the Taliban. Donald Trump is in a recent picture standing next to the former leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria. Is that what we're now classifying as a justification for killing someone?
Oh, and I can just leave it at that. I think he did a really good job there. Because the reality is, yeah, people take pictures with a lot of people. That doesn't mean that they're a part of that. And even if they were, like if I was Medi, I would have added a little bit more here, which is that, again, under occupation, people who are occupied under international law have a right to resist, and even with force. So if I was Medi, I would have added that piece to the conversation as well, because we got to continue to push back on that narrative, right? Because I think a lot of people just don't know what the international law says when it comes to that particular issue. But it's absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. I just, to say that they need to lose weight. Mike Huckabee sees the same images on social media that you and I have seen. He sees those pictures of the Palestinian kids starving. He sees those videos of the IDF killing those Palestinians getting that food. He sees those videos of settlers destroying the aid. But that's not Mike Huckabee's job. His job here is to convince people that Israel is the right way. And I think that that ship, it has sailed. And I got to tell you, I don't know. I've lost count about how many people have reached out to me privately and have told me that prior to October 7th, they either really didn't have an opinion on Israel or they did support, Israel. After October 7th, they're just like, what the hell is going on there? They just don't support it anymore. And I think you're going to see that continue to grow. And the numbers do show that more Americans also do not support what is happening to the Palestinian people. And all this does is make Israel weaker because you are being shunned globally. This isn't just about the US. Being shunned globally for your actions against those people. It has been so inhumane and so disgusting. And I continue to say it. This is colonialism expanded. And this is the last final stage of it. It's the Israel stage. They already did North America. They already went to the Caribbean and all these other countries. The Middle East, this Israel stage is the final piece of colonialism. And once Israel has conquered this, it's just so shameful. And all the other countries, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, who are sitting around thinking they're safe, you guys aren't safe from this colonialism expansion either. Especially considering the map that Benjamin Netanyahu has showed to Congress. You're not safe from the colonialist expansion either. It's called expansionism for a reason. They don't just take a little bit of land and say, all right, we're fine, we're done. They continue to expand. They continue to want to grow. What a disgusting person. Like, Jesus Christ. He should have let, and I know someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, he should have let Medi Hasan have that conversation, debate Mike Huckabee to his face, but Mike Huckabee probably would have been against that. Coward. Let's get to some of the comments, ladies and gents. Natalie said the colonizers of yesterday will always support the colonizers of today. There you go. Thank you, Skylar. By Mike Huckabee's hypocritical logic, Nat Turner and other enslaved people's revolts, the French revolutionists, Haitian revolutionists, and the American revolutionists were all terrorists. Exactly. Like, that's the point, I continue to bring up. New York Varsity said, and Sabby was right, Pierce did little to zero pushback on Huckabee. Yeah. Honey says, thank you, Sabby, standing up on truth. You are welcome. We have a poll. Let's see how everyone voted here. Should DSA allow Zionist members in their organization? Okay, 3% said yes. I don't know who those 3% are. That's interesting. 80% said hell no. 4% said I'm not sure. And 13% said, what is DSA? I appreciate people being honest saying, what is DSA? Thank you for the tip on Rumble Goo. BB's son is hiding out in Miami, so he does not have to be involved with the IDF. And his daughter, Governor Sarah Huckabee, spent $25 million of state money on Israeli bonds with promise to purchase more. Yeah, these people are sick, man. Sick people. And thank you for this one as well, Goo. His referee narrative changing for another team is best described for Western journalists and legacy media. And thank you for this one. Regarding his daughter using Arkansas funds to buy Israeli bonds is a conflict of interest, and I have seen Arkansas civilians complaining. Good rotting in the sun is because Israel won't allow it in. The ISIS-linked Abu Shabab gang, which is funded by Israel, is stealing food from Gaza under IDF protection. It's crazy, guys. And thank you for this one. King of Jordan does not care. He will go back to England along with his Palestinian wife, stealing money and letting Jordanians suffer. Oh, I tell you, it is such a cold, cruel world, man. Such a cruel world. That is it for me tonight, ladies and gents. Just a reminder, Whitney Webb will be here Thursday night. Don't miss that. That should be a banger. That is it for me, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.